Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosbus,
Here.
Commissioner Baker, Commissioner Collins,
Here.
Commissioner Gary,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Talentino,
Here.
Commissioner Tuorty. Here.
Okay, Commissioner Talentino.
I'll make a motion to excuse Commissioner Baker from this evening's meeting.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Good news, I understand the recording is working. So, great. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you very much. I would ask those with cell phones, if you would please put them on vibrate or turn them off, we would appreciate it. Item B, proclamations and recognitions. There will not be any of those tonight, so we'll move on to item number C, which is the public comment. Any person may reserve time to speak on an agenda item, not to exceed 3 minutes per person. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on an agenda item? What, you're already on the agenda?
I'd like to speak on some other agenda items.
On their items too?
Please.
Okay. And you, each of you know that you're on the agenda, you have 10 minutes to do, okay. Okay, excellent. You have their, would you give us your names?
Stephanie Sabatini, Glenda King,
Francine?
Francine Barbermeyer.
Okay, and as I understand it, you want to, Steph, you're going to speak, and then Glenda wants to speak also, and then Francine, and then when it comes to yours, okay. Okay.
You asked us, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on, item number D, the consent agenda. Deputy City Clerk.
Item D, consent agenda. Item 1, approval of City Commission meeting minutes of August 6, 2018. Item 2, approval of the Airport Advisory Board meeting minutes of July 12, 2018. Item 3, approval of the Board of Review meeting minutes of July 17, 2018. Item 4, approval of the Economic Development Corporation meeting minutes July 10, 2018. Item 5, approval of the Tax Increment Authority meeting minutes June 12, 2018. Item 6, approval of the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting minutes of July 19, 2018. Item 7, reappoint Gary Thessing to the Ethics and Conduct Board for a term to expire on December 17, 2019. Item 8, appointment of Douglas Salick to the Existing Structures Board of Appeals to fill the balance of a term to expire July 1st, 2019. Item 9, reappoint Steve Garish to the Existing Structures Board of Appeals for a term to expire on July 1st, 2020. Item 10, reappoint James Howie to the Existing Structures Board of Appeals for a term to expire on July 1st, 2021. Item 11, reappoint Larry Warner to the Existing Structures Board of Appeals for a term to expire on July 1st, 2021. Item 12, reappoint Seth Harris to the Planning Commission for a term to expire on April 19th, 2021. Item 13, reappoint Ken Kavanaugh to the Planning Commission for a term to expire on April 19th, 2021. Item 14, reappoint Clayton Shunk to the Planning Commission for a term to expire on April 19th, 2021. Item 15, appointment of Maria Cantarero to the Tree Commission for a term to expire on June 30th, 2020. Item 16, reappoint Roger Blanchard to the Tree Commission for a term to expire on June 30th, 2021. Item 17, reappoint Gene Smith to the Tree Commission for a term to expire on June 30th, 2021. Item 18, reappoint Kevin Wozniak to the Tree Commission for a term to expire on June 30th, 2020. Item 19, reappoint Dan Campbell to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term to expire on June 1st, 2021. Item 20, reappoint Ken Dunton to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term to expire on June 1st, 2021. Item 21 is approval of a contract amendment to C2AE for SAW grant services. And item 22 is approval of consent agenda items.
Okay, thank you. And we certainly would like to thank all those folks that volunteer and give their time on the various committees and commissions of the City Commission, the City of Sault Ste. Marie. We couldn't do what we do here without the excellent work of the committees and the people that spend the time going through a lot of that paperwork and information. So we thank them very much. Is there a commissioner like something further explained on the consent agenda? Not Commissioner Twardy.
So move that we approve the consent agenda.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy,
Yes.
Mayor Basbas.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. I'm waiting for the, you guys vote? Oh.
Come up.
Technology. Okay,
Is that on yours?
great. Thank you.
Got it.
Item E.
Item E, under special orders of business. Item 1 is the second reading of an ordinance to permit and regulate the use of barbed wire fencing to protect critical utility facilities located within residential zoning districts.
Thank you. City Manager Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. On this matter, I've requested that Community Development Director Freeman present. Thank you.
Evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission.
Evening.
Back in early 2017, the City Commission adopted an ordinance to establish commercial fencing standards. Prior to that, we'd just been using the residential standards citywide regardless of the type of zoning district. And for obvious reasons, within residential zoning districts, barbed wire is prohibited. So as part of establishing those commercial standards, those included special dispensation for utility facilities to use barbed wire. One of the things we did not do at the time was provide those same allowances for utility facilities in residential zoning districts. Obviously, utility users are present in all zoning districts, so we need to have utility facilities in all zoning districts. So the matter on the table before you tonight would provide equal treatment for utility facilities across all zoning districts. For you is public comment and then action on the item.
Okay, at this time, we will go for the public comment. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to comment on that particular item, you may do so at this time. Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public comments. City Commission. Commissioner Gary.
I make the motion to adopt the presented ordinance to amend section 10-1.1712 of the city's zoning ordinance to permit and regulate the use of barbed wire to protect critical utility facilities located within residential zoning districts.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
No.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy,
Yes.
Mayor Basbas,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
My computer wants to do updates. Item F under Communications, 1, from the Airport Advisory Board, authorization to release a request for a proposal for a service provider at Sanderson Field.
Okay, thank you, Jen. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. On this matter, EDC Executive Director Holt is planning to present.
Okay. Evening, Jeff.
Good evening. Okay. As in your packet indicates, our Suez contract, or another way to put it is our airport manager, his contract expires in June 30th of 2019. And we've been working now for quite some time to try to put together an action plan for when the manager retires. And he has indicated that he is going to retire, which we're very happy for him. But we want to make sure that the changeover is seamless and without any issues that aren't well planned for. So we've prepared an RFP to be released, and what we have done is we've sought input from our city attorney and our our deputy city manager, Robin Troyer, and it was determined that the RFP will provide the city with a critical start for moving forward with, as I mentioned earlier, a seamless airport operations and continuing that operation. Our objective for this RFP is to provide services of a fixed-based operator, which is an FBO, for a general aviation airfield. To also provide professional, corporate, and general aviation line services, to provide other airport services, including general maintenance, repair, fueling, etc., to hopefully increase the efficiency of the operations and continue the fine work that the folks have done there, and also, obviously, to provide excellent customer service. We are very pleased with the process that we've gone through here, and we have talked to and visited with and met with many actually, airport operations in northern Michigan. And what we found was no two are run alike. But we did hear that the industry experts have indicated that we're on the right track. That number one, we're planning early, and that we're trying to be ready for the inevitable June 30th, 2019 changeover. So this will allow us to have some overlap with the new guard, with replacing the old guard, so to speak. So, and many thanks to EDC specialist Tracy Leighton for all the work that she's done. She did a lot of traveling, and we appreciate that.
Any city manager, anything additional?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just echo a number of Mr. Holt's comments in regards to the in-depth research performed in preparation and the development of this RFP. I know that the on-site inspections were very illuminating, notwithstanding the results that may come through this RFP. A number of process improvements, benefits were accrued through that process. Just would be very eager to see what type of innovation may come through this process. And certainly, as Mr. Holt mentioned, the intention is to promote stability and continuity in operations as we continue to work the airport into our economic development portfolio and expanded services for the community.
Thank you. Just a comment, too. I read the fixed base operator agreement that was attached to our agenda, and it's extensive, and it's a very key position for the success of the airport. And they have pretty much total control, along with the airport board, of flights in and out and marketing it. So it's certainly a comprehensive position. And Larry Putnam has done an exceptional job over the years that he's had that position, and understand he's retiring.
Yes.
So we have a few months to gear up, and that's what you're trying to do. Commissioner Gary, I believe you're the liaison to the...
I am, and I just wanted to echo those comments. I think Tracy and Jeff have done a great job, and the complexity is certainly there. And And by hitting this in advance, it will prevent having some of the issues happen when the last manager retired and we had some uphill battles. So this will be great to have this done in advance, and I like the approach that they're taking on the proposal.
Okay. Commissioner Twardy.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess that's what I was just going to ask. Are you looking for a sole individual to replace Larry, or is it more considered like a firm or somebody to take over?
We're looking for either or,
Okay.
whatever serves us best.
Okay.
And we're not hoping or planning for either one. We like to think that when we first started out, we thought we had everything figured out, and it gave us some challenges. And if it's one individual person that can manage the way it's been doing, great. If it's a team, that's great too. But again, as the RFP indicates, it's whatever benefits our city, and wise choice and wise usage of our dollars.
Yeah.
So
Larry wore many hats, so.
he did, and those folks up there work a lot of hours.
He'll be missed, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of hours.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Commissioner Gary, I'd like to make the motion.
I make a motion to approve the release of the RFP as presented.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any additional questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy,
Yes.
Mayor Bosbus,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Gary.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Whoops.
Okay, Jen. Item number 2.
Item 2 under communications from the Economic Development Corporation, approval to release a request for proposals for a firm to market the city's Air Industrial Park property.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, on this matter, Mr. Holt will present.
Thank you again. We have been working diligently in the last year or two to come up with a plan on the vacant property in and around our city airport. We've been told over the years that this is prime real estate, and we're anxious to get the process rolling. We've been working with the city's Real Estate Acquisition and Disposition Committee, or CREED, and they've given us a lot of wisdom and direction in how we should proceed. And with their help and with observing other entities, as we did before, we have come up with an RFP that we think will allow us to hire a firm that would market our properties accordingly. Our objective is to identify a Michigan-based real estate firm that demonstrates the expertise in the marketing of the property for sale, and enter into a contract to secure the sale of said property. There are 13 lots total up at the airport. They have been identified but can be adjusted. We tried to come up with a plan that gave developer enough space acreage-wise, but not to completely make it too large where we didn't scare them off, so to speak. They've all been surveyed by Northwoods Land Surveying, and the title work has been done through EUP Title. Our scope, some of the scopes are the realtor will be judged and selected based on recent, relevant, and past experience in marketing for these types of properties. The respondent should explain fully just how the properties will be marketed. The proposal will include compensation package for such sales contract, that the agreement proposed between the real estate firm and the city of Sault Ste. Marie will be applicable. And listing contract will be for initial term of 6 months, and at the renewal with the option of the city of Sault Ste. Marie. We're expecting our proposals to be in by September 21st at 4 p.m., provided the commission approves this RFP.
The City Manager, anything additional?
Thank you, Mayor. The only additional comments I would have would be that this initiative does tie in with various city goals. For example, the disposition of property and returning of city-owned parcels back to the tax rolls, as well as provisions of documents such as the 2020 vision and the master plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Commissioner Talentino.
Sure. I make the motion to approve the release of the request for proposal as presented with response due back before 4 p.m. on September 21st, 2018.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty,
Yes.
Mayor Boswes,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 3.
Item 3 under communications from QOE presentation on Sanderson Field under drain project.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. With us tonight is Mr. Mike Borda with QOE Consulting.
Okay. Evening, Michael.
Good evening, thank you, Oliver. Mayor, Commissioners, it's great to be here tonight. Talk to you a little bit about the Sanderson Field under drain project. Talk about the
Can you
bidding
pull the
process.
microphone a little bit towards you? So
Closer.
the,
How's
thanks.
that?
Thanks, Michael.
Okay. Just 2 seconds of background. I've been in the airport consulting business. For north of 35 years. So I've been through the bidding process of construction contracts dozens, hundreds of times. This particular contract was really no different than others that we've done. It is a unit price, line item bid items that total into a bottom line price that's presented by the contractor. This project was essentially a follow-on to a project that we did a year ago to put a porous friction course on the runway. It was determined during that project that there is a drainage issue at that airport. This project will go considerable steps towards improving that. We went to bids. We have a number, we went to bids, advertised in several places, took bids on June the 20th. 2 bids were received, one from Bonacci Contracting and one from Elmer's, Team Elmer's, as it's commonly known. The unit prices and the line items are very important in this type of bid, in that the quantities that are estimated for the line items are just that, they're estimated quantities. When the project is constructed and we get to the point of final inspections, specific quantities are measured as to what was actually put in the field, and the final amounts to be paid are adjusted. For instance, in this particular contract, there are a number of lineal feet of 4-inch underdrain. There's 6-inch underdrain. There's square yards of mulch blanket. There's outfall pipe. All things whose quantities can vary and can change during the course of construction. As we reviewed the bids, one bid came in with simply a lump sum, had no unit prices, had no extensions of the individual cost items. We ended up recommending Team Elmer's to do the work. Team Elmer's was a few $1,000s higher, but we knew what all of the individual bid items entailed. One of the difficulties in reviewing a bid that did not have bid prices and This was a mistake on my part because I did talk to Bonacci Contracting about, after the fact, submitting that information. But this gets into an area of, I don't know what other word to use, it's contrary to the established city bidding process to do that. The bids that are submitted are the bids that are supposed to be reviewed, and that's it. That's your bidding process. We want to avoid going down a slippery slope that says, well, you did that on this bid, well, I want to do it this way on this bid. So the bottom line was that the Team Elmer's bid, a few $1,000s more, but that's the one that we recommended because we knew what the unit prices were. We knew that we could determine a final project cost, and this is what was submitted as the bid. That's,
Questions? Commissioner Collins?
yes, sir.
So by allowing Bonacci Contracting to actually submit the line items for the bid, that was actually something that you typically don't do?
In all the years I've been in this, I have never gotten a line item bid proposal in that didn't have the extensions already completed. This was, and I should not have in this case. This was a first for me.
Okay. Commissioner Collins, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? The city manager, just, I guess the unit pricing is an important item. Could you kind of explain how that works?
Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Borda. Certainly, Mr. Mayor. A unit price contract relies upon the skeleton, which are the unit prices, as part of the complete package. If quantities are adjusted throughout a project, particularly a construction project, those unit prices are critical to determining change orders, up or down, to use those costs to determine if more quantities were used, what a fair price would be for a change order for the contractor, or if fewer quantities are used, the sum that would be returned to the city. The unit pricing would be standard for this type of project, and it's something that the city anticipates responses on. So once the bids are opened, of course, it's difficult to control the access to the information from a sealed bid once it's opened. And without the unit pricing information, reviewing the information from the sealed bid process, for example, it's difficult to determine if a change were to happen, what would that mean for the community? What would that mean for the project? I think it certainly speaks to the ability of the city to better control a change order if the unit prices are determined up front rather than in the midst of a project. Thank you.
Commissioner Collins? Yeah.
I guess I'm just struggling with why you went back to Bonacci Contracting and allowed them to do a line item bid when that was obviously not in the procedures to do so.
Yeah, it was a mistake. I should not have done that, but in looking at the two bids, Bonacci's was several $1,000s less. So I'm thinking, okay, is there a way that a bid that technically was considered non-responsive could still be looked at? Simple as that.
So then once you actually got the line item bid from Bonacci Contracting, then what was your decision-making process to where you then awarded the bid to the other one versus them? What was your thought process?
Well, even with the line extension, the late submittal of that, it did have some math errors in it. It wouldn't have made a difference in their bottom line. It was a very insignificant, but there were several math errors due to rounding. And at that point, because it was outside the standard bidding process, I simply admitted that, hey, I shouldn't have gone this route. And this could conceivably put the city into a precarious position on future bidding. That say, hey, this was accepted on that airport project, you know, I just made this little non-responsive issue on another contract. Why don't you accept it?
So if I'm following you correctly, basically you realized you made the mistake before you made your recommendation, and then once you made your recommendation, you corrected the fact that you had gotten the line item. Is that
In
correct?
essence, yes.
Okay.
So my recommendation was a couple of days. I think my recommendation was on the 26th of June, something like that.
Okay.
That's correct.
I think also that, I remember the, I think it was July 2nd meeting when the city attorney, maybe you could tell us again how the bid process works for the city, Sault Ste. Marie.
Well, the city of Sault Ste. Marie bid process is consistent with every other municipality that I'm aware of with respect to the acceptance of bids and the request for bids. In the agenda packet before you, the first attachment and the second attachment are the very detailed bid specifications. The third attachment is a copy of the two bids as received. The only one that can award a bid or reject a bid is the city commission. City staff, consultant engineer, city engineering department have no authority to award a bid. The only exception to that is the city manager for contracts under $10,000 may award a contract without city commission approval. But this contract was significantly above $10,000, therefore it must have been considered by the city commission. The engineering company is correct. Once bids are opened, they should be submitted to the city commission with a recommendation, and then the city commission can decide whether to follow the recommendation or not follow the recommendation. For the integrity of the process, it's important that no alterations be made to a bid after they are submitted and opened. It's, as indicated, a dangerous precedent to do that because everybody's information is on the street, and as a result of that, you could get a bidder who's not selected complain that their information may or may not have been made available to someone who was allowed to modify their bid after the bids were opened. So we don't allow bids to be modified after they are open. And again, the city commission decides how to award the bids based on the information presented to them at the commission meeting for their action. You may determine the factors as you deem fit at that time.
Thank you, and I think I said also, we always would try to make sure that the local, and we have a local bidding preference that we established many years ago. But we certainly know that the local contractors employ local people, and it's important that people maintain work and make a decent living and a quality type living. So when we can award bids to local contractors, we're more than willing to do that, given the fact that there's certain procedures that need to be maintained in order to keep the integrity of the bidding process. And we've discussed these kind of items over the years, and that's how we had the local preference. Wasn't something that when I was first on the commission was something that they had, but established at the 5%, and I think we've worked through that. But what can you, I mean, the process is the process at this point. Commissioner Torti.
Thank you. Yeah, and I understand protecting the integrity of the process, but I can also understand how maybe Bonacci Contracting was a little confused, especially if there was no communication when you went back to them and said, can you submit some more information? But then it would have been really nice had you reached back out to them and said, I'm not going to recommend your bid because this wasn't the correct process and the integrity of the process was already compromised. So I fully can understand why Bonacci Contracting was confused. So, and I'm sorry for them.
Anyone else? Commissioner Miller.
I just have a question. Who Who asked you to be here tonight?
The city commission requested,
Commission?
yeah,
I think so.
Okay.
through the city manager, but,
Yes.
I mean, that,
Through the
we,
city manager.
the July 2nd meeting, we wanted to hear.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. City manager, anything additional?
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item.
Item 4 under communications, from Stephanie Sabatine, discussion on rental property procedures.
Excuse me, before we, Mr. Bonacci had his hand up. Were you here at the beginning when we asked for people that would like to make a comment? Oh, you came in late? It's your company we're dealing with, if you'd like to make a comment? Okay. Okay, well, no, you don't have to wait till the public comment time if you want to now. Yeah, sure, we'll, if we could just hold that next item until, I think we at least owe the contractor, Bonacci, the chance to speak. And Mr. Bonacci, you have, I believe it's 3 minutes is normally the rule, so.
Thank you. I'm Carmen Bonacci, the owner of Bonacci Contracting. I'd like to have like a chance to rebuttal what he said. Okay, now he accepted my my line items. He accepted them, and I was the low bid to begin with. Okay, and then he said to us, what he said to us is he talked to us about lowering the price even more because of a certain pipe that we were going to use. He told us that he liked what he was hearing, and he said he was going to put in a recommendation in our behalf. And then he said that if we promised to accept a change order for the items that we discussed on the phone that day. And so I don't understand any of this, something got out or any of that kind of stuff that the public, the bottom line is we gave them what they wanted before anything got out. And I don't know why you put this in your bid packet that you have the ability to decide whether to overlook a detail like that. But I mean, I just did what the man said that I could do. I asked him, I said, is this unresponsive? He could have said yes, and I would have been at the meeting to try and defend myself. The way he indicated to me was that we were going to get the job, so I didn't come to the meeting. I just thought there was no point, you know? And so I think that if I would have had the chance to talk to you folks and all this talk about, they do this all the time. This guy is telling you something that you want to hear, but they do this. They make exceptions in the different communities and stuff that really care about the people that live in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item, please.
Item 4 under communications, from Stephanie Sabatine, discussion on rental property procedures.
Okay, thank you. Evening. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Stephanie, we appreciate it.
Yep, this is Stephanie Sabatine. I'm Stephanie Sabatine. I want to make sure that this is being recorded and that there's going to be a DVD of it, because the last time I was here on May 21st, the recording was shut off or it was damaged or something. There's no recording, but I just want to make sure that this is being recorded.
Okay.
Okay.
check, make sure.
Perfect.
And if
Thank
it
you.
stops, let us know. Wait for him to come back. Okay.
Yes, it's being recorded. According to the IT director, there's no guarantee that it would be able to be put onto a DVD because last time the file was corrupted, but it is being recorded right now.
Okay, good. That's all you can do.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm here. I want to talk about the process for rental registration. I spoke out at the May 21st meeting. I feel that this was in retaliatory in nature, and the reason that is, I had a tenant who broke a lease. We're going to court. I filed the court papers. I have every document that I need, and I have copies of all of this for you if you guys want to see it. I got a rental checklist. First of all, too, I want to back up a little bit. I've been a landlord in Sault Ste. Marie for about 30 years. I've been rehabbing properties in this town for a long time. And I haven't had any problems with fixing up my properties. I haven't had anybody having to direct me or inspect or anything like that. All this stuff was done by my initiative, by my money that I work to earn. I don't get any government handouts. I have nothing. Everything that I do is by the sweat of my brow, and, you know, it's just, it takes a long time. I have a sixplex. It's a commercial property. That's my only one left in the city of Sault Ste. Marie. I put a list together as to what I've dumped into this property. Since I've owned it in 1993, I've put $80,000 in it. If you want a breakdown, I will hand over a copy. You can include it right in the minutes if you want. And then Jeff Stefanski came into my life in 2012, and that was to try to get me out of the way, I'm pretty sure. Since that time, and I also wanted to let you know that there was a comment made that nothing's been done since 2012. That's not true. I've dumped $23,935 plus regular maintenance on things into that building in the last 6 years. And I have to replace an electrical service with the 400 amp service. I'm going down from 6 meters to 1 or 2, whatever Cloverland tells me they can do. This is a $12,000 deal, okay? I have to borrow money to do this. Robert Brown showed up to my house at the request of my tenant who was trying to get out of her lease. I can prove it. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand that I have all the documentation that I need to prove this, okay? And this isn't my first go-round with City Hall. 2012 was the first one. It was a nightmare. It took years off my life. I've been dinged on a broken basement window. I got a $950 fine that I need the money to put into my building. I don't want to give you guys $950. This is not just, and it's not right. And there are some things in here that are fabricated. I've gone over with the contractor and tested the allegations in this letter, and if you guys want a copy of it, like I said, I've got copies. My rebuttals are in here. He's got me down for future violations of 10/24 of 18. So, you know, he charged me $100 for an extension cord that I didn't even know about, that my tenant brought in. You know, some of these, he said there was a light in the bathroom that didn't work. Well, I've got 2 lights in the bathroom. And he also failed to recognize all the money that I put into my building. I've put new windows on the 2nd and 3rd floors of my 100-year-old building. Just because I have a 100-year-old building doesn't make me a slumlord. It makes me an investor. And I have a problem with this process. There's no communication. I called Robert Brown's office. He didn't return my call. I'm the one that's in the position to take care of this. Not anybody else. My tenant's not going to fix anything. I'm the one that has to come up with the money. I'm the one that has to hire the contractors. And here's another thing. I hire local contractors. I give them jobs. Local contractors get work from me. I have never gouged my tenants. In fact, one of my tenants came downstairs today when I was at my building and said, hey, Steph, if you need me to write you a letter, I will. Because you have the best prices in town, and you're not a slumlord. So if you guys want letters and stuff like that, you know, that's fine. I can get them. The only problems I've really ever had is when City Hall got involved. I also have to put siding on my building. I also have a master plan. If you guys want to see my master plan, you can see it. It's all written down. And how you can help me? First of all, I have a question. Are you guys interested in helping your investors, or are you interested in driving them away? Because at this point in the game, I just feel like I've invested all this money and time, 30 years of my life in this city, and this is how you treat people? I built a house in Sioux Township. Jay Predmore was the building inspector, very helpful. Came out, showed me how to do the things, showed me how to save money. I look forward to meeting with him because I always learn from him. But this process that you guys have now, there's no communication. It's pretty crazy, actually. When a fluorescent light, I also got dinged on a fluorescent light here that didn't turn on right away. That typically happens when a bulb goes, and it's a matter of changing the bulb. Nobody called me. These girls did not call me. They lied to you guys. They wrote a letter or they were coached to write a letter to the city on July 26th, the date of the inspection. They had already broken the lease. I received a letter from them on July 6th. And it just seems to me that this is becoming a means to help tenants get out of their lease, and that's not right. What else do I have here? I've got all this stuff documented if anybody's interested. Also, I'm very transparent. I invited this entire commission to come and tour my building. I've invited people to come and see what I do as a landlord. I hadn't one taker, not one. So I'm just curious, what is it that you guys expect from us? There's another thing I want to point out too. Violations can be found on just about every building in this town, whether even new construction, okay? And there is a process to construction. This is construction 101, okay? You can't put new windows in if you have a crumbling chimney. You can't put paint on your building if your house needs a furnace. People like me who work, I work 3 jobs. I work really hard. I work 7 days a week. I get up in the morning. I usually work till midnight every night. So, you know, just to be treated like this, you know, restoring old properties are expensive and they're a huge undertaking. I met with your city manager. He told me that I asked him point blank, who do you think is going to come in here and fix these properties if it isn't people like me and these guys out here? Who do you think is going to do that? And he said he thinks that a bunch of young people are going to move to town and do that. Well, people starting out don't have that kind of money. They don't have that kind of experience. You know, are you guys trying to get rid of us? Because it sure seems like that. I just don't think we need any further bureaucracy to enforce existing codes. We've got an existing fire, health, and safety ordinance. And, you know, we live in a town of 14,000 people. So I just don't think that it's necessary to have additional bureaucracy. It seems like you guys are just collecting money. Our names go in a database. We can't communicate with Robert Brown, your enforcement officer. When Glenda had the job, it wasn't so bad. I was able to call her and say, hey, Glenda, I got a junk car here. My tenant won't move it. She'd come over and she'd work with us. She'd call us back. She'd communicate with us. You know, I'm the person that's in position to do something about this, nobody else. And I'm being left out of the loop, and I'm not happy about it. I just don't think it's fair. I also tried to FOIA the complaint process, and there isn't one, I was told. But yet we have a very, very specific certification that we're supposed to sign. We have to sign, we're forced to sign and say that our old buildings are in practically perfect condition. That's unrealistic. You know, we have to turn in this certification. We have to pay money. If we don't, we're threatened with high fees, title search fees, late fees, even misdemeanors. I was threatened with a warrant for my arrest for not putting paint on my building in 2012. Really? That's crazy. Anybody would say that's crazy. So, any questions?
Any questions? I guess we're good. Thank
You're
you.
good?
Well, we have another presentation with Mr. Brown going to be city manager. Are you done? You have a question?
Yes, Greg.
Commissioner Collins.
Stephanie, did you receive any letters from, I guess, city administration before you got this letter saying that with all the violations and the $900? Was there any contact at all prior to this?
Zero contact. Hit me right out of the blue. Had no clue it was coming. I did get a letter from my tenant, and it was, it says, Stephanie, we are sorry to inform you that we are submitting our 30-day notice. So-and-so has accepted a job with a different organization and will be moving. So-and-so can't afford the place on her own and will be moving in with her boyfriend. We will be moving out on August 3rd. Thank you for everything and good luck with your next renters. Does that sound like somebody that's disgruntled to you? Because it didn't sound like it to me. And then I get a letter on July 26th, the same day that the inspection was done. My sister and I invited the city to our apartment. There are violations of building code making this apartment no longer inhabitable. Really? I had a contractor at my house today. He kind of laughed at me when I told him that. It's not uninhabitable. It's just an old building. Because I have an old building, it doesn't make me a slumlord. I don't rip people off. I don't gouge tenants, like I said. I employ local contractors. I volunteer a lot in this community. I just wrote a song for the 350th celebration, and it won second place. So, you know, no one can accuse me of not being community-oriented. I gave 20 years of my time on volunteers, thousands of hours of music. You know, I'm on board, but you can't keep beating us up like this. This is crazy. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Oh, all right. You're welcome.
Thank you. City Manager.
Thank you for that presentation, Ms. Sabatine. Because there are 3 items on the agenda regarding the rental registration program, I thought it appropriate to discuss the overall program, its administration, its enforcement, so that it can be placed in a broader context as to why the program exists. So as commissioners are aware, rental registration programs serve the public purpose of protecting public health, public safety, and public welfare. The availability of quality housing, and specifically quality rental housing, is critical to fostering economic development and meeting the needs of many populations. Enhancing the availability of quality rental housing on a local level will support increased enrollment at Lake Superior State University, meet the needs of major anchors such as the U.S. Coast Guard and a hospital, and prepare the community to accommodate the local impact that will be felt when a new lock is constructed at the Sioux Locks. In the absence of available quality rental housing, investors and entrepreneurs will not be as eager or willing to invest in Sault Ste. Marie given challenges arising with employee recruitment and retention. As noted previously to the City Commission, the City of Sault Ste. Marie's rental registration program is not as rigorous or as comprehensive as programs established by examined peer communities. Indeed, the City's rental registration program is unusual relative to those communities with which it is competing for talent, while it's working to achieve a higher standard of public health, safety, and welfare. For consideration, the cities of Alpena, Traverse City, Escanaba, Big Rapids, and Marquette have all instituted rental registration programs with regular inspections being performed by the municipality. Moreover, the City of Sault Ste. Marie has an interest in ensuring public health and public safety. The Community Development Department and the Ordinance Enforcement Officer periodically encounter living conditions and rental units that a reasonable person would condemn as intolerable. In many of these instances, the tenant maintains a property interest in their leased property. Thus, a tenant can contact the city and request an inspection of the property subject to established law and regulation. In 2017, the city requested and received information from over 25 Michigan communities regarding such tenant-initiated inspections. In approximately half of surveyed communities, the landlord is not required to be notified in advance of the inspection. Feedback received indicated that such notification may only create conflict on site and result in a tenant being intimidated. Indeed, the city's own building department has encountered situations in which law enforcement had to be called due to landlord-tenant disputes. For such reasons, and to protect the safety of involved parties and the safety of its employees, the city has not made it a practice to contact property owners in advance of a tenant-requested inspection on a rental unit. Of course, the main driver of a rental registration program is public health, safety, and welfare, and a documented violation can exist independent of the relationship between the tenant and the landlord. Concurrently, it should be noted that Ordinance Enforcement Officer Brown exercises caution and due diligence during inspections to determine if tenant-initiated damage is a possible cause of a violation and has the authority and demonstrated judgment and experience to act accordingly. The research from 2017 also demonstrated that many of the municipalities that do contact landlords in advance of a tenant-initiated inspection also maintain a mandatory rental inspection program through which a public employee has reviewed and certified property conditions. Finally, it should be noted that effective programs can protect both the public and public safety employees. Commissioners likely recall that the body camera footage provided by Chief Riley recently showing police department officers breaking out a glass block window from a basement occupied room to rescue 2 children imperiled during a house fire. It was later determined that the property was an unregistered rental. While there is no guarantee that the property being registered under the current program would have resulted in a code-required egress window being in place, the incident is a powerful reminder that a rental registration program can provide the city with the ability to enforce and require improvements which preserve public health, safety, and welfare. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You have someone else coming up or not?
Yes, if Mr. Brown would like to come up and speak to specific comments which were made during the previous presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I am prepared to do a presentation if you like, but you've all seen the pictures and the reports. As you recall, and some of you are new, right around 2012, this topic came up to the commission, and they were throwing around doing mandatory inspections or a self-certification or just maintain what we're doing. At the time, the commission came up with a self-certification checklist that we mail out to the owners each year, and to encourage them to inspect their units. Also, it's knowing that we would do a voluntary inspection by a simple call. I would come and inspect, cite or note the violations, and the owner would be required to fix them at no cost. In this particular case for 400 Cedar, indeed, Mrs. Sabatine is correct. There are violations that, as of my recent inspection, did exist in 2012 also. I only inspected 2 units then and the exterior of the property. Some of the big violations there, paint is one, not so major, but it shows in 6 years that the exterior has not been painted. I believe a broken window, and more so the frayed wiring from the service panels to the units is actually in a bit of a worse condition than it was back in 2012. More so, we have 6, and this is more of what I wanted to talk about, the self-certification. We're relying on the landlord to be knowledgeable of it and to accurately fill it out and do their inspections and return it. On this particular building, it's been certified 6 times from the property owner. When I was called in, the tenant recently contacted the city manager's office asking who she contacts. That was forwarded to me. I communicated with her through email, and she asked me to inspect because she had issues. And the issues found while I was there, major ones are indeed cords running under doors, for the fact that there are not 2 required outlets in this particular bedroom. That is a requirement, and you sign off on that when you turn in this self-certification. A fire hazard, right? You're walking on it, and the door's rubbing on it. Furthermore, in this same bedroom, there's no windows, no egress windows. That is another requirement on the checklist. What do I say? If there's a fire from that cord, who's gonna, how are they gonna get out? And we just, as the manager said, we just had that over on Young Street last year. 2 kids in an illegal basement bedroom. Thank heaven the police were there and broke out the windows and got them out. But that's why we have these, right? And it kind of shows that the certification, self-certification, isn't really working 100%. We could certainly do better. As far as the fees, I do have discretion. I do, when I inspect, I do look for tenant damage. For instance, last week I had an inspection. There were 4 broken windows in the house. All the glass was inside the house yet. And they've been there like 9 months. It shows that the tenant did it. The handrail was missing, but the screw holes were ripped out of the wall. I didn't apply the fee. Often, if the smoke detectors, if I could find evidence of the smoke detectors, I require they're put up, but I don't apply the fee. So you got to use some discretion and common sense, right? There's good tenants, there's bad tenants, there's in between. Indeed, as Mrs. Sabatine stated in some of her literature she sent us, tenants do use the system. Not all of them. There are some that do use the system. I'm guided, it doesn't matter if they haven't paid rent, if they didn't, if they have access to the unit and I'm called in, I have to inspect. When we inspect the entire unit. And the exterior.
I guess my question would be, well, let's go to Commissioner Tuarty first.
Okay, thank you. That was actually going to go back to my, when you were talking about disgruntled tenants, because Steph and I met for coffee a couple weeks ago, and she claims she has paperwork that shows that the tenant was no longer a tenant of hers at the time of the inspection. And so would that make the inspection then null and void? I mean, were they disgruntled at that point? And so that was, I guess that's one of my major questions. And then my second question is if all of the fines are standing and you're expecting timelines, and we sit on the Community Improvement Committee, you often create reasonable and realistic timelines with property owners, correct? We do this all the time, because right now, even if you were to try and get hold of a local contractor, they're all so busy right now, you may not be able to get anything done until December. I'm trying to get some work done on my bathroom, and I can't get the contractor to call me back. So those are just a couple of questions that I had.
Sure, and the first question, I believe, was the legality of it. We did communicate with the tenant over a week. I'm unaware that she was evicted or not. There were statements while I was in the unit that they were moving. She did state to me that they were moving and that they were required to fulfill the lease until someone else got in the unit. Then I kind of picked up on that it was more of a disgruntled. Could have been. On the other hand, they specifically stated issues such as no window in the second bedroom. The window in the compliant bedroom was actually, the counterweights were missing. So it took great effort actually to get up the window that was in the other bedroom. So there's certainly issues, life safety issues. So there could be a little bit of both.
Okay.
As the legality, I would actually ask Mr. Canello. I have written statement from the tenant, as actually the next speaker made. It's kind of a real similar issue.
And then
The second question.
Yeah.
Yes, the fees, they're fees, not fines,
Okay.
are still standing, yes.
And then creating,
Mrs. Sabatine had an opportunity, as everybody affected by a decision I make, has the ability to go to the existing structure Board of Appeals to argue their case to them. And she has not done that.
okay, and then creating more realistic timelines for
Yes.
getting some of the work done?
Absolutely. Every single owner that showed effort and time and effort onto their issues, we have always worked with them.
Because she had showed me a couple weeks ago that she does have plans to get some of this work done. It's just hard to get a hold of contractors right in the middle of summer. So if she can show that she already has been engaging with contractors, can that be more of a realistic timeline than, I know that her deadline was fairly quick. It was like October.
Yes, absolutely. If she submits it in writing
Okay,
with dates, we could certainly review it and respond in writing to her.
okay, all right, thank you.
Ironically, we have, just going through my files before the meeting, we have a timeline from the 2012 inspection.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gary.
I think most of my questions were answered, but Mrs. Sabatine asked about the concurrent date on July 26th, but I see that the original complaint was verbal and came through the city manager's office, and then they must have filled out a letter and given it to you on David's inspection?
The original complaint was emailed to the city
Okay.
attorney, and Mrs. Sabatine did FOIA that and has that,
Thank you.
yes.
Commissioner Collins.
So am I understanding correctly then that if she submits the timeline that shows when she's gonna have the work completed, that the $950 fees or fines are then waived, is that correct?
That is not correct.
Okay, why?
Nope, the fees are what the commission put in place. If essentially I get called in and you had certified your unit or not, if I get called in, any violation against that checklist, there's a $100 fee applied.
So that's our way to ensure that self-certification is done correct.
That's correct. The, what happens with the approved timeline, approved realistic timeline, depending on the issues, such as the bedroom window, that's immediate. They got to stop using that as a bedroom immediately. That's something we can't work on.
So what happens if, so she's got a timeline that she's supposed to be done, let's say it's October. Let's say that she doesn't do anything and October comes around, what happens then?
Sure, certainly. If we have no approved action plan, no improvements have been made, then we move forward with prosecution. Yeah. Which are code violations, are misdemeanors. And that's where Mrs. Stavatine is stating that possible jail time. But there's fees that a judge could put on and up to 90 days in jail.
So at the end of the day, the $950 is due because of the self-certification that the property was in good order and then it wasn't.
That's correct.
Trying to think of a way you can work that into waiving the fees so that if she does the work, but I mean, if that's they're two separate issues.
Thank you.
No more questions.
Okay. I guess there's a difference too. And maybe the city manager can explain the process of, as I understand it, we cannot go into a property unless you are called with just the self-certification program.
That's correct, unless it was an absolute emergency.
Right,
We
yeah,
would-
exactly.
yes.
But yeah, we can't just walk in and inspect rental units.
That's correct.
Unless, and then your response, maybe you could explain his responsibility of making sure that when he goes into a unit, that everything that he fills out the form correctly, because if he doesn't, there are ramifications if he doesn't fill out the form correctly, if there's a violation that he doesn't put down on these forms, I would think.
Thank you for that question, Mayor. Yes, as the ordinance enforcement officer, Mr. Brown is charged with upholding the established ordinances of the city of Sault Ste. Marie of conducting inspections. And when a tenant with property interest calls and requests an inspection, conducting the inspection, if for some reason Mr. Brown were to conduct inspections and decide to not conduct certain inspections, at that point a charge of selective enforcement could be raised. But it's my understanding, and from everything I've witnessed from Mr. Brown, when a tenant files a complaint, he inspects the property.
Every time.
Commissioner Collins.
So hypothetically, let's say I go buy a rental unit and I want to self-certify, but don't know anything about self-certification. Can I call the city and have you come and assist me with filling it out to make sure that I'm in compliance?
Currently at no cost, we would do that, yes. And I have several landlords that have utilized that. Again, it helps them down the road. It helps them if there's an eviction. It helps them if there's damage, and it helps them be compliant.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? City manager, you have anything else?
Nothing further on this
Okay.
matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Item 5 under communications from Glenda King, residential rental registration enforcement policy and procedures.
Okay. Good evening.
Hello,
If you'd identify yourself for the record, we appreciate it.
my name is Glenda King. Earlier, I had raised my hand that I would like to speak on Stephanie Sabatine's
Yes.
agenda item.
Mhm.
So I'd like to do that first before I begin mine, if that's all
Okay,
right.
and she has 3 minutes, is that what it is?
3
Okay.
minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw Steph Sabatine's inspection notice, and there were things cited like structurally unsound because the floor's tilted. That building is over 100 years old, and I owned a home that was built in 1906 that I sold for $131,000, and my floors also dip in. They're old structures. That doesn't make it structurally sound. I disagreed with that, but she got dinged $100 for that. There's a beautiful fan window on that building. And I mean, you can't replace windows like that. I have a passion for these old buildings. And I think that's just gorgeous. And in there's a picture of that fan window with a little hole in it about the size of a dime in one of the fans. $100 for that. What would that involve to repair that window? Who would you find? And how much would that cost? So in all of those, so a housing inspection was filed. He went in there. She faces $950 for going there, $100 to go there, and $850 for each item he pinged. A hole in the siding, this big, $100. You know, why isn't there some kind of, I understand you don't know, the policy, I did this job. The policy in years past, I started with the city in 1994 as a secretary, and I'm not here to talk about my employment like the records indicated at the May 21st meeting, but history is a very valuable thing, so I have to refer back to it. I'm here to talk about the policy and procedures of the rental registration ordinance. Okay, 1994 to 1998, I was a secretary in the building department. There was policy and procedure, and it was always the same for housing inspections. That department had a stack of free landlord-tenant rights booklets, always on hand in the department. So at that time, 2 building inspectors did the housing inspections. When a tenant came to file a complaint at the city building department, the first thing they were given, landlord-tenants rights booklet. Please review this. You may find your answers in this booklet. If you don't, you can come back and you can file a housing complaint with us, but understand, you know, you could face eviction when you do that. That's what we would tell these tenants. So they had a full understanding of what might happen to them. Is that 3 minutes? And then, I gotta finish this. So, booklet first, off they go. Some came back, not all came back. Many of them found the answers in that booklet. If they came back, they had to put in writing and be very specific about the code violations that they thought existed. Then the building inspector would enter, but not unless they got that written complaint. Where was that written complaint for that housing inspection? Why was the written complaint from the tenants on the same day Steph Sabatine got her letter? How did that go? How did that happen? I don't understand that. So what happened to that policy and procedure that was there to protect the city, to protect Robert Brown? What happened to that? Where'd that go? So now a tenant comes in, and I don't know how this inspection went, and I don't know why, because she isn't a slumlord, and she does have a good building, and she did invite all of you people in to see her building. She has it on website. You can go on there and look at it. Did anybody contact her? She asked you on May 21st, come look at my building. Now she's facing $950 in fines right off the get-go. How many windows would that buy? Can't you like, even if there is a housing complaint, couldn't you, like, after you do the housing complaint, meet with the landlord and say, these are the issues, you know, and start off friendly with them and give them a certain amount of time before you hammer them with $950 just for going there? I mean, it doesn't make sense. We're in the rental business, and it's expensive. We pay 18 mils higher on taxes. We get commercial loans that are a higher rate of interest on our loans to rehab. It doesn't make sense. You guys are killing us. And now I'm reading, and you're heading to licensing. There is no difference. You have so many laws on the books that can address everything, right down to dirty water you're not supposed to throw out in your yard. Did you know that's in the ordinance? You got laws for everything. And then you put this layer on top of it. You're killing us. I mean, I don't know why you're doing this to your natives of this city. I don't know why. 750, there's 800 and some now. What are you doing to us? We're trying to, an investment property, you know, the way we invested our properties, we got a mortgage, we rehabbed, then we rented it. So we're paying for a mortgage, and then you figure, you know, over so many years, then you'll have a little savings when you retire. So that's my comment on Steph Sabatines. Now I'd like to, my agenda item is policy and procedures, and I want to start. I came on May 21st and I asked many questions, and I didn't get any answers. I got sent here, and I got sent there, and I got emailed here, and I got emailed there, and nobody ever talked to me. So I want to be heard. So I have some handouts here. And May 11th, I sent some emails to city manager about properties on the east side and the west side and the south side of our residence that we owned, that we sold in October because we couldn't stand to live there anymore. And I didn't want to bring it out in the public, but I did request that he inform you of these, and I don't know if he did, so I'm going to hand those out to you. And then I'm going to read an email I sent in 2014 to Mr. Turner, and you'll maybe get a better understanding of where I'm coming from. So these are the complaints from May 21st on the 3 properties that surrounded me. I'm just giving you an example of what can happen to owner-occupied people. I'm a firm believer in really proactive enforcement. And then my email from 2014. And this is what I'm going to read. 2014, I was still employed. It pertains to this. I've been talking about this for years because it really matters to me. Okay, so in 2014, I was getting ready to retire, and I had my 20 years in, and I knew that I couldn't be touched or retaliated against. So I decided I was going to stay until March through the assessing cycle because I worked in the appraiser's office. And so once I reached my point, and I had been in a meeting about rental registration, and things bothered me that I heard in the meeting, and so I wrote this memo. To Oliver Turner, I hope you don't mind, but as a property owner in the city, I am asking that you review the attached memo I have prepared on the subject of property maintenance issues. My husband and I own a home and 2 rental properties within the city. Since purchasing our property in '89, we have invested approximately $70,000 in renovations to the property. In 2007, we purchased a bank-owned property on Augusta Street and spent about $35,000 in renovations before we rented it. That includes everything. That includes electrical upgrades to 200 amp service. It includes everything underground all the way to the rooftop. New roof, windows, siding, basement sidings, and every surface touched. In 2014, we purchased another house on John Street, and we have just completed the renovations of this property, and now that's rented. As I planned for my life after retirement, it is my intention to purchase another blighted property to renovate. In deciding whether to purchase within the city or purchase in a different location, property maintenance enforcement weighs heavily into the decision of investing.
So, I am writing this memo to give you my opinion as a taxpayer, underlined, of the city of Sault Ste. Marie on the topic that affects the quality of life of all property owners/residents in this city. I am not writing this to complain or criticizing anyone, so if I offend anyone with this, I would like to apologize in advance. That is not my intention. I have lived in the city for 32 years, first as a tenant at different locations before purchasing a home in '89. I've experienced what it is like to be a tenant in this city and also what it is like to be a property owner. Furthermore, I am a city employee who has been employed by the city for 20 years. First and foremost, I believe it is our duty to serve the citizens of this city. I also believe that all city staff should be free to express differing opinions on topics that deal with on a day-to-day basis without fear of reprisal or personal attacks. I believe robust debate is a positive thing, as it may lead to the best conclusions for all instead of for just some. Personally, I've paid a huge price for my opinions, but I feel pride in the job I have done in serving the citizens, and in fact that I have held on to my integrity while doing so. Therefore, I submit the following. This is history. In 1994, I was hired by the city to fill the position of building department secretary. In that capacity for 4 years, I ran a switchboard for City Hall, answering all incoming calls for all departments. During that time, I listened to hundreds of complaints from city residents regarding property maintenance issues. Many property owners were very upset about the sprawling blight throughout our old, crowded neighborhoods. Many complaints received were also about parking problems at some of the rental properties where you may have a 2.5-story structure with 4 or more apartments in it, sitting on a single lot with no parking space for tenants. Due to the magnitude of public nuisance complaints in 1997, from May to September, a city created a seasonal part-time position of ordinance enforcement officer to address complaints. A lot of positive feedback was received from the citizens as a result of this action. In 1998, a full-time position was created with the understanding of proactive enforcement, not reactive enforcement, proactive. Code enforcement is out on the streets and you're looking for the complaints. That's what's going to clean up this property, not sitting there and waiting for me to complain about my neighbors on the east and west and south side of me, which I would never do because I want to get along with my neighbors if I want to live there. The way you have it set up now, it's reactive enforcement, and a person has to complain, and when they complain, they have to give their name, and why would anybody do that? If they want to reside in that neighborhood, why would you want to fight with your neighbors? Taxpayers pay money for this service. We are paying for the ordinance enforcement position, and it was hired in as proactive enforcement. Prior to that position, it was reactive enforcement because the inspectors did it, the building inspectors did it, and people were very unhappy. Then you created the position with proactive enforcement, and now it's back to reactive enforcement. I'd like to know how that happened, and what are we paying for? I mean, you're not out there enforcing the code, you're not protecting people who invest in the property. You didn't protect me. You didn't protect, so if you want people like me to reside in your city, then you better start protecting what we invest in our properties. The reason my husband and I left was in fear of losing $70,000. That's why we left. We lived there for 30 years. We raised our kids there. We knew the neighborhood. We didn't want to move, but can't lose an investment like that. We sunk tons of money into our house. So I just, I want what's good for the city. I'm a firm believer in proactive enforcement, but it has to be fair, it has to be uniform, And I don't see, yeah, rental property owners are in business to make money, but we're taxed higher, we're mortgaged higher, and we're really held to a different standard, and I don't think that's right. What about the owner-occupied? So that's my problem, and, I sent an email to Oliver Turner June 18th, and I asked the commission to meet with the landlords. It's really hard to come here and try and squeeze what you want to say into 10 minutes and 3 minutes, and there's a lot to say, and I really wish that you people would sit down and talk to us. We're good people. We're business people. Most of us want what's best for this community. I have great concern about these old neighborhoods. Why aren't we protecting the housing stock in the city? Not just rental properties, owner-occupied too. Why aren't we protecting the housing stock with proactive, fair, uniform enforcement? That's what I'd like to suggest. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, City Manager?
Thank you for that presentation, Ms. King. And
Identify that at the beginning of the meeting, I want to speak on Glenda's agenda item.
Let's go to the City Manager first, if you want to.
just a quick note, I appreciate that input and certainly appreciate input from employees with the city. My records do show, as you mentioned, that on December 3rd, 2014, I was provided with the email as well as the memorandum. On December 8th, 2014, I forwarded it on for review. And on December 11th, 2014, the assessing department provided a detailed list of possible rentals that may be unregistered, at which point it was turned over to the community development department for research. It's my understanding that they followed up thereafter. So certainly any time input is received, we do appreciate it and look forward to following up on it.
Okay. Okay. Who was up? Stephanie? Okay.
I also want to add to Glenda's agenda
Can
item.
you introduce yourself just for the record so that we
Stephanie
can sense the
Sabatine.
different- Okay.
I FOIA'd some other properties. There is definitely selective enforcement. I don't want to reveal things in front of people because I don't think it's cool, because I'm not like that. But there's 3 properties that I FOIA'd that had complaints against them, but they're not shown. And you guys need to think about that, how this is going to play out, because that's not fair. It's not equitable to those of us that are putting money and time. I spent the entire day preparing I had work to do, and this is a waste of time and money on us. I don't have the resources that you guys do. I don't have unlimited government funding, and for my houses, I have to work for that. And there is definitely selective enforcement. If you guys are interested, talk to me. I FOIA'd it, so.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. We're moving on to the next. Do you have anything else? Anything else for that item?
Nothing further. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Item number 6.
Item 6 under communications from Francine Barbro Miners, discussion on rental registration.
Evening.
Okay, so Francine Barbara Miners, and I am probably going to be echoing some of the responses or some of the comments that Stephanie Sabatine and Glenda King made. First off, regarding Stephanie Sabatine, so I too had a tenant who I evicted, and within days of him receiving his eviction, he contacted, I don't know if it was Bob Brown directly or if it was Oliver Turner, I don't know. The ironic part, though, is that despite my $550 fine that I received, the fact that I had move-in checklists, I had move-in pictures, and that I met with Oliver Turner and Kelly Freeman on 2 occasions to explain that I had this documentation, I had these photos, that all of the, I shouldn't say all all but one of the complaints that I received a fine on were a result of that tenant. One of them included a structural issue with my front door. Well, when you bolt it and deadbolt it and then kick it in, yeah, you know what? It's going to look like there's an issue. When you go to a basement, you can tell that the door was jimmied open, that you can tell that it was scraped open so that you could gain access. When it specifically indicated in my lease, which I provided a copy to both Oliver Turner and Kelly Freeman, indicating that there was no access to the basement, and photos showing that it was obviously broken into, that's an issue that the ordinance enforcement officer does not have clear mind to look at that door and think, should I be entering it? Is there an issue here? That's my issue, is that the whole process doesn't work. So yes, if a tenant calls, absolutely, come in, take a look, make your notes, take your pictures. But then after the fact, sit with the landlord, not at the same time as the tenant, because of course that doesn't make sense, because the landlord is obviously going to be upset with the tenant. The tenant is obviously upset because they're either being held accountable for a lease that they're breaking, or they've been evicted. Does that not make sense? Meet with the owner, sit down, have the owner bring their inspection checklist, bring the photos that they have, to be able to justify that, no, this is nonsense, this is not how I rent my homes. Yet if somebody is that upset that they're being evicted, that they want to do that kind of damage to my home, and when I have proof that I bring to the city, and the attitude is in all honesty, and it's not a pretty much, it's all honesty, oh well, 2 meetings I had with Mr. Turner and Mr. Freeman. Actually, I can't recall that Mr. Freeman attended the second one. What did I do? I paid the $550. Why? Because I didn't want to have the city police knocking on my door arresting me for nonsense that could have been dealt with. So yes, I paid my $550. Who got a cut of that? I don't know. Was it fair and just? Absolutely, positively no. Because all it would have taken was to sit down with Mr. Brown and to be able to show him my pictures, show him the move-in checklist. The ironic part is the photos that were taken. Oh yeah, I mean, I can go into any one of your houses and I can take the time and I can find some pretty ugly stuff. But it's ironic how he failed to take a picture of my on-demand hot water tank so that all 5 of my tenants have hot water when they need it. He failed to take pictures of all the brand new windows that were installed. Failed to take pictures of the brand new roof. But he sure found enough crap to take photos of. So, you know, and then I digress, I come back. My husband and I started buying properties in town in 2012. We bought some of the ugliest houses in town. And we spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort getting these homes into good condition. Our whole mandate was that, you know, we had a young daughter, we wouldn't rent a house to any of your children that we wouldn't allow our own children to live in. We fixed them up. The people that live inside our homes, they're happy. They love them. They walk in, they're like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Is the outside beautiful? You know what, I could have some siding updated. You know, there's maybe a little bit of soffit and facial work that needs to be done. But these tenants, they live on the inside of the house. So what if there's a little bit of siding issue? It's not a big issue. When we started investing in this town in 2012, it was part of a retirement portfolio. Money's not making any money sitting where it is, so let's invest in Sault Ste. Marie. Guess what? At this point, I'm ready to list everything and get out. I don't think the commission realizes the amount of taxes that we pay as non-homesteaded. You know, if we start putting these houses, if we start selling these houses, putting them on land contract, the amount of taxes that the city's going to lose, it's phenomenal. Another thing I don't think that y'all are taking into consideration is the fact that this city needs us. The new housing development that's going in downtown, that's awesome, that's phenomenal. But what you're failing to realize is that that's federally subsidized housing. Tenants in those houses have to pass credit and criminal backgrounds. There are income requirements. I guarantee you, I'm going to guess 50% of my tenants wouldn't qualify for subsidized housing. Am I okay with that? You know, I don't have a choice. I need to be, okay? But I'm providing safe and comfortable housing for them. So if you start to the point where the landlords are saying, you know what, this isn't worth it. We're going to sell our homes. We're going to put them on land contract. What are you going to do for those folks that don't qualify for subsidized housing? You're going to end up with a crisis. You're going to end up with a homeless crisis because these folks aren't going to have any other options. You look at MISHDA. MISHDA provides notification to their tenants or to their owners before they come in and do inspections, at least 30 days. And yet, you as a commission, as the city, feels that you can just come in behind the landlord's back on the basis of a tenant, and 99.9% of the time, I'm going to guarantee that that tenant is somebody who's evicted or is breaking their lease. Why else would they come in? If they're happy, they're going to call me and they're going to say, hey, you know what? I have an issue with the toilet. I'm going to go in, I'm going to fix it. If they're pissed off, excuse my language, if they're upset and they want out of their lease, or if they want to say, you know what? You want to evict me? Yeah, that's all right. What are they going to do? They're going to call your office. They're going to say, you know what? She's a slumlord. This place is crap. That's what's going to happen. And any landlord who's here who hasn't had to deal with it yet, I guarantee you, I promise you, at some point, you're going to evict somebody or you're going to call them out on their lease, and they're going to call, and then they're going to have the same issues that Steph Sabatine and I had. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. City Manager.
Thank you. I would invite Mr. Brown to come up and speak regarding the specifics of this concern.
Robert.
Hi again. There's a lot to respond to. Back to the comments of proactive and reactive enforcement that Mrs. King made. And I thank her for coming up and speaking. It takes a lot of courage. What the commission needs to know is back in the day, we had 2 building inspectors, 1 building official, 1 code enforcement officer, and 1 full-time secretary. Currently, we have 1 building official and 1 code officer and a half-time secretary. That being said, there's always room for improvement. We've opened more complaints, or I've opened more complaints each year by 100-fold each year. Over 50% of them are proactive, not reactive. And that was a directive that the mayor and city manager Nebel at the time directed me to do from my date of hire. And every year since, I've actually opened more complaints that were self-initiated over called in. So I wanted to clear that up. Back to the fees that were applied, it's actually a $50 inspection fee and a $100 violation fee. Just again, just to clear that up. Lastly, on that subject, you could look at the records. Back when we had 3 folks enforcing, we handled several hundred a year. And just last year, I was over 1,000 myself, to show we're really going in the right direction. Okay. Now up to 905 Young property. Again, I got called in by the tenant. This was actually quite a deal. Finding out later that allegedly the tenant didn't have access to a basement. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. The police were called. It was sent over to the sheriff's department, sent over to the prosecuting attorney. They declined to press charges against myself or the tenant. I was unaware of it at the time that I was called in the basement. I'm very thankful that I did go into the basement. There were major violations there. Portions of the chimney was missing, certainly not tenant done. Part of the foundation was failing, which actually failed this spring. It wasn't fixed, and it fell in this spring. And electrical issues down there that were major. Really, it just shows that the self-certification isn't working in every case. And it is working in some cases. Maybe there's another hybrid. I asked the commission to just look back to 6 years ago. We thought this might fix it. You know, we threw out there, or Mrs. King suggested that everything's on the books already. Well, we sent everything to the landlords in their checklist, and it's still not working. It's kind of that simple.
Okay, Commissioner Twardy.
Yeah, sitting here, we've been sitting here for a while and listened to all 3 of you, and I understand you're all really very frustrated, and then I see Jimmy and Don out there, and I see Greg back in the corner, and I think what I would like to really talk about is maybe a hybrid program too. You know, I don't want to be treating our property owners and our landlords initially like they've done something wrong, because I think a lot of these phone calls are being made because tenants are disgruntled. And like in Francine's case, she was in the middle of evicting this boy, so of course he's going to try and reach out and get her into trouble, almost like, just acting like a toddler. So I would love to see if we could maybe do an ordinance officer assistance type walkthrough. If we get a phone call from a tenant, maybe the first thing that we do is we have Robert reach out to the property owner and say, hey, we just received a phone call from one of your tenants. Can we go through your property together? That way they're not being treated like the criminal in the first place. But I think that we definitely need to move forward with a little bit of a different hybrid program.
If I could comment on that, please, and
Yeah.
I believe the city manager spoke to it. Ironically, a landlord in the room exactly did that, showed up on an inspection. And it was quite out of hand, and the police had to be called. We survey other communities, and they concur that it's a hostile situation. For having, I'm not advocate for having the landlords there during a complaint-driven inspection. That being said, we've also found the communities that have a mandatory inspection program, at some point in time they were in that unit, inspected it. They will not go back to the unit on a complaint. The very first thing they do, receiving a complaint from a tenant, is contact the landlord and say, hey, your tenant in Unit 1 complained about XYZ. Please verify it, and please get back with me in 7 days or whatever it be it, that it is fixed or compliant. And then those code officers actually call up the tenant again and say, hey, it's our understanding that the window was fixed, or whatever it is. Is that indeed the issue? It kind of takes the code enforcement right out of it, and it curtails all the upset tenants that are getting evicted, haven't paid rent, that are malicious, all the above.
Yeah, especially in the case where Francine had move-in pictures and a move-in checklist. Obviously, if somebody's been living there for a short while and she can prove that the house was in good condition, and 9 months later, things are not looking so good, I mean, that's tenant-driven. That's,
Sure, and in this case, again, if you look at my earlier presentation, I use discretion for certain. On the front door, you could obviously tell it was kicked in. The cracks in the drywall where the house is settling, the cracks in the foundation, the chimney failing, the open sockets in the electrical panels, those things are not tenant-driven.
okay. So then,
And I do use that discretion, I truly do.
where do we kind of go then from here? I saw that Robert had submitted a recommendation that we kind of move it forward to the Community Improvement Committee.
Oh, it's automatic.
But yeah, I mean, I think that we need to have a discussion. I mean, we have a lot of landlords in
I
town
think the
who
city
are.
manager wants to make a couple comments.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner, and outline, Mr. Brown. So the concept of an inspection program that we found from many communities which were surveyed actually benefits the landlord in some ways. An inspection program can provide that a landlord is on site during the inspection. As Mr. Brown mentioned, if a tenant calls, there are times where they're referred to the landlord to follow up with an issue, especially if it is after an inspection is recently conducted. Additionally, there's a possibility of working in a provision of a timeline during an inspection with the landlord, an agreed upon timeline through that venue. Right now, certainly understand that the checklist in and of its own nature, that it can be something that's difficult to administer from a communication standpoint with landlords, but certainly something through this process that we've taken a lot of notes on and working to learn from. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
I'm all set if you are.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, Commissioner, you good? Okay. Commissioner Collins.
Yeah, sorry. So basically what you were saying is that if we had the mandatory inspection, then that means that you're gonna go in and do the inspection before the units are rented. And then at that point, if there was a complaint, you would actually then forward them to the landlord first because you've actually already inspected it prior, correct?
If we did what our peer communities do, yes, that would be it. If we were already in there, inspected it and passed it, down the road a complaint comes in, the other communities typically will just contact the landlord.
So, and I understand what Commissioner Twardy was talking about as far as like walking through with the landlord, and I also see your concerns as far as how that would be an issue. Is it possible that in an instance where you go and do an inspection, like the one that we've seen here, a couple of them, that instead of just sending them a letter, maybe getting a hold of them ahead of time and talking with them about what you found? Does that make sense? Like just basically instead of, like to me, when I first saw the letter that Ms. Sabatine showed me, I thought that was like, holy cow, this is your first correspondence. Like, man, that's pretty abrasive, right? So as a landlord, I'd be like kind of taken back. So I guess something that maybe is a little bit friendlier, like, hey, listen, you know, I went to your place and checked it out, and there's some violations I'd like to talk to you about. I don't know, just something in the interim to be maybe a little bit friendlier.
Sure, I could see that. Absolutely. I could see from your viewpoint, I could certainly see that. Look at the bigger picture. I do that, especially for particular people that aren't going to hang up on you, or people that aren't going to call you every name in the book, or literally tell you and hang up, okay? I've learned that through the 10 years that I've done it. Ironically, I did inspection last week for a guy, the one with the 4 broken windows in it. He had issues, other issues. I called him up, said, hey, I'm working on a letter. You're going to get it, and there are going to be fees. I've told them that. And I make it a point to contact every landlord if there's no smoke detectors or immediate things that have to be done immediately. Major life safety things. No matter how bad I'm going to get chewed out or hung up on or what have you. But you learn the people that you could deal with and the people that you can't. It's just, I've been doing it for 10 years, and there's some people that no matter what, they hate you. You know, they do. They just hate you. So I do that, Greg.
So I guess my question would be is with Ms. Sabatine's property then, obviously that wasn't the first correspondence in reference to that then? There would have been others or?
There has been. We did an inspection back in 2012. I believe that didn't go well.
But then in 2018, you found the same issues. I guess that's my biggest thing is that I think that there should have been some, before getting to that point, that there should have been a step prior to that where there might have been a little bit more, what do you call it, the velvet hammer approach versus just the hammer.
Certainly. And we have not followed up on that. We do have correspondence with Mrs. Sabatine from the original inspection of reminders that your submitted deadlines have passed, your new deadlines have passed, you must contact us. We have done that, and that all fell to the wayside. Short of getting a warrant, that would have been the next step.
So is there something that we can have, like the city manager, like look into maybe possibly?
City manager.
Thank you for that question. As has been recently discussed in this meeting, this concept is being referred to the Community Improvement Committee for further discussion the middle of next week. And certainly the timing of this meeting is very beneficial for that conversation.
And for the people out there that don't know what the Community Service Committee does, can you explain that, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. Important background. The Community Improvement Committee consists of internal administrative officials working with 2 designated city commissioners, Commissioners Twardy and Talentino, to review properties for which complaints have been received so that the efforts and time of the ordinance enforcement officer can be devoted to following up on concerns in a programmatic manner which works to eliminate concerns of selective enforcement. There's a certain methodology which the committee applies to enforcement matters. On the foundation of that, the committee works to discuss policy, has the ability to make recommendations to the City Commission regarding enforcement activities, and certainly the recent conversations regarding the rental registration program, the input from landlords and property owners, and the research that administration has completed to further take a look at those concerns and determine how can the program be improved. Those are items which would be referred to the committee, after which time their discussion or findings or recommendations can certainly be forwarded to the City Commission.
So basically, everything we talked about tonight is going to go in front of that committee, and then they come back with their recommendations.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good luck. It's your fault. It's your fault.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you. I
Thank
think
you.
Stephanie Sabatine has a comment. You're good, Robert. Thank you.
Go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to add a comment to that. I was not given any additional letters after the 2012. I went to see Spencer Niebel, and I told him I was going to paint my house fluorescent pink if he didn't have his henchmen. It is, but it's a huge house behind St. Mary's Catholic School. And I told him, I said, I'll call every newscast from here to California and New York and put Sault Ste. Marie on the map, and I'll let people know what's going on. I was harassed in 2012 because of Jeff Stefanski. He moved my tenants in with him. Do you guys remember?
Remember?
He trashed my apartment, and I just, he went to prison, and the other guys had to pay me. So, as far as the certification thing, no, that's not right. The certification, you are forced to self-certify. You're not self-certifying anything. You're certifying that your 100-year-old building is in practically perfect condition, and it can be used against you if you lip off to City Hall. I mean, because I think that's what happened to me last time. And I think that's what happened at the May 21st meeting, too. I think that's probably why it was a great opportunity for someone to come over and hammer me on, things. But I did check the light. It works. There's 2 light sources. Like I said, I have all that stuff. If you guys want to look at the checklist or at the letter I got from Robert Brown, got copies. Perfect. I'll get you copies. Good.
We have it. Glenda, you had your hand up earlier and okay.
I just want to make a comment again. When this program started in 1998, we guaranteed the rental property owners that there would be no fees. They stuck me up at that counter, the pretty little thing, the cute little sweetheart, and I told everyone. And believe me, they called me every name in the book. Nazi was one of the favorites because we created a registry of landlords, the city, and I had a part in doing that. And I told every single one of those people, over 750 property owners, absolutely no fees. This is free. This is only for contact information. I asked about policy and procedure on this code enforcement. There used to be policy and procedure. That's what the rental registration meetings with the landlords were for. You received a complaint on a rental property, you went to the rental file, you picked up the phone, you contacted the tenants, and you said, who are the tenants in control of your property? Because at that point in time, it was the city attorney's opinion that the tenants had control of the property. You had to deal with the tenants. You notified the property owner because any billing involved in the matter was assessed against their property. They were always informed of everything. That's what the registration was intended for. In 2012, the self-certification came in. Now, I was a landlord then, and I don't remember being notified of that. How did that come? Was there public hearings on that? You had the registry of hundreds of landlords. You didn't contact me. You didn't notify me. All I know is there was a $10 fee in 2012, and what is this self-certification? I had people come in registering when I still worked here, sign it, and I'd say, hey, you better read that. They didn't even know what it was. You didn't notify hundreds of landlords, hundreds of rental property owners. We weren't notified of that. That was rammed down our throat, and here we are. And look what's happened. What's the policy and procedure on a housing complaint now? What is the policy and procedure? It should be the same policy every single time. Therefore, it's fair and uniform, and everybody is treated the same at all times in every single situation of a housing complaint. I just heard Mr. Brown say, he called the landlord and said, hey, there's a letter coming. So he called one landlord, but what about Steph Sabatine? Did he call her? No, she just got the letter. So there's a difference there. People aren't being treated the same. You need fair and uniform enforcement. And now I see a whole bunch of stuff about licensing. Are you going to notify us of that? You're talking about meetings with the two commissioners. Are we invited? Are we going to be notified of that meeting so we can join in the discussion about something that really affects us and our investments? Just a question. I'd appreciate it. I asked June 18th to speak to all of you, and I know other landlords would like to speak too, and have the opportunity to voice their concerns and their questions and be part of it. It affects us. We should be a part of that discussion.
Thank you.
And I look forward to the invite.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Nothing further.
Okay,
Your Honor.
other than the fact that, and I was here in 2012, we had an extensive background and public hearings before that was ever adopted. I'm not sure what happened to Ms. King's notification, but the certification thing was to try and find out all the owners of property that were back then, because I don't think the city really had a good handle on it, but through the certification program and the fees, I think people came and made sure that they were notified, and I think the city attorney was involved in that discussion, making sure that we had actually the owner of the property and not the person that was the manager of the property. City attorney, remember that discussion?
What is your question?
Just that the rental certification program and all that leading up to it was certainly city commission time, and we're on TV and was part of the agendas that we talked about in public hearings. We met with the property owners in several meetings, I remember. Not everybody shows up, but I know Stephanie Sabatine was at a few of those. And we, you know.
Well, there's been two programs over the years.
Yeah.
Rental registration was the first program. That program was extensively discussed before it was instituted. Glenda King is correct. There was no fee for the registration, and the purpose of it was that the inspection department repeatedly, in responding to dilapidated structures, couldn't figure out who owned it. And so it was a way to get the ownership squared away ahead of time prior to any needed inspection, and also if the owner was absent from the community, it required the appointment of an agent that the inspector could deal with that was local, so that the property agent knew on behalf of the property owner exactly what was going on, and so that the city knew exactly who the owner was and who the agent was, and so they could have communication with them. Ultimately, the city commission determined that it wanted a more extensive program, and there was the natural extension to the registration program is a required inspection program. Some inspection programs do not allow the landlord to rent the property until the inspection is completed and passed, meaning that the property is forced vacant by the municipality during the period of time that it takes to inspect it, and during the period of time that it takes to correct it, and during the period of time it takes to re-inspect it after the corrections have allegedly been made. In lieu of the problems that would be associated with a mandatory inspection prior to renting, the city commission considered mandatory inspections unrelated to the renting of the unit, being on a cycle or sequence, every third year, every second year, every fifth year, or something like that. City Commission decided not to go with that program at that time, but instead took a fallback position. How about if we have the owner self-certify the property to us? And that was where self-certification came in. The owners would do their own inspections, the city would provide them a checklist, and the owner would return that, and that was the first time that a fee was assessed when that inspection form came back. I would note that that was an attempt by the City Commission to avoid any type of rental inspections. Subsequent to the institution of the self-certification program, the city discovered that many units were not, in fact, on inspection passing or meeting the self-certification requirements. So the City Commission again revisited the issue for numerous sessions and probably more than one budget cycle, and decided to impose fees for properties that were inspected after they had been certified that did not meet the self-certification. And fees were included in the fee ordinance for assessment by the inspection department. The fees are, as noted earlier, appealable to the existing structures Board of Appeals, who can waive or modify the fees. And in my opinion, any of that can come to the City Commission for an additional appeal. So it's not necessary that people pay the fees. They can appeal them if they disagree with them. If the existing structures Board of Appeals does not side with them, they can appeal it again to the City Commission, who will be the final decision prior to the assessment of their property for any unpaid fees. That's kind of a short history of many, many, many years, more than probably 20, that you've been involved at all in property inspections or registrations or certifications. I might note that it's not required for you to do any of that. The law does not require the city to have an existing structures Board of Appeals. It does not require the city to have an existing structures code. The City Commission adopted the existing structures code many years ago, and as part of adopting the code, created the existing structures Board of Appeals to hear requests from property owners with respect to variances or matters of enforcement dealing with that code. You're not required to have that code. You've chosen to have that code. And that code is the basis for all the violations cited by Mr. Brown in his letter to all the property owners here today. He starts each paragraph of his enforcement letter off with a citation to that code. And then he follows it with photographs and analysis and his decision on what should or should not be done to correct it. And that code is the basis by which anybody might be taken to court for refusing to repair their property. And we have taken property owners to court for violations of the existing structures Board of Appeals, or existing structures code before. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that explanation. Okay, that concludes, I guess, the communication portion? Yeah, correct. Okay. Item number G is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 1 under the city manager's report would provide for the award of a bid for a multi-purpose utility vehicle with attachments for the Department of Public Works.
Evening, Jim.
Good evening. Click on this thing here. In the current fiscal year, the DPW was approved for a sidewalk blower and for the street department and a production mower in the Parks Department. Production mower, those are those big Toro units that have 10-foot cuts on them so they can get through the parks as quickly as they can. Before we started our selection, we all got together and figured out some goals that we would like in the, if I can hit the thing here, here we go. In the piece of equipment. The first one is to greatly improve our sidewalk snow removal program. We know it's been lacking for a few years, and it's been a big goal of the commission for a number of years now to improve our sidewalk program. So that's what the machine we intend to do with that. Also, with the multi-purpose trails going in and the sidewalks along the business spur, it's going to, we're going to have a lot more sidewalk in the next, next year for sure, and, probably more as time goes by. So we need a machine that's capable of expanding our current sidewalk system. We also want to improve the grass cutting in our right-of-ways. The piece of equipment that we have now isn't capable of it. Our right-of-ways are overgrown, along like places like Riverside Drive and Bermuda, by Tanglewood Golf Course, those type of places. We just don't have the capability to clean these areas. So that's another goal that we wanted to do with this piece of equipment. We wanted to improve the tree and branch trimming along the sidewalks and around the signage. We just had a gentleman come last meeting talk about the sidewalks needing to be trimmed back. We're aware of that, and we're also aware of the signage, like stop signs, that they need to be trimmed better. And some of the attachments that are available right now, we can do that pretty efficiently. We also want to improve our Parks Department grass cutting. We want to get a big production mower capability on a piece of equipment that we can use year-round. We checked out, the city of Escanaba uses a piece of equipment similar to what we're going to recommend to you in their Parks Department. And if you've ever been to Ludington Park by Escanaba, it's beautiful. They do a fine job on it. And this is the type of equipment that they use. Again, and we want to use, find a machine that's expandable for future uses, like stump removers, different types of attachments, sweepers, and other type of things. So that's what we were looking at. So again, of course, we want to stretch our funding as far as possible by using a machine 12 months a year instead of 4 months a year typically. So with that in mind, we did a bunch of research over the past year and a half, and looked at 6 different types of machines. The first one was a mini loader. We demoed this one. I won't go through all the advantages and disadvantages, but we did our due diligence on the type of machine that we were looking for. This was a nice little machine, but it's just not big enough for our needs. We looked at a groomer type. It's like a tracked vehicle with a heavy-duty blower on it. It's great for snow removal, but it really wasn't good for anything else. We looked at a mini skid steer. We could use that year-round. They're cheap, but when you get them small enough to go on the sidewalk, they didn't have enough power to really move any snow. And you had to trailer them to different parts of town because they only went 6 miles an hour. So, then the other type we looked at was like an ORV type utility vehicle. It's kind of like a side-by-side that people use all the time. I got a couple of them at the cemetery. They're Toros. John Deere Gators have been around for years. We checked these out. We didn't demo this particular style, but we're all familiar enough with the side-by-side to know what it's capable of. It's really underpowered. It's good for like a farm or some institutional use or something like that, but for a heavy-duty sidewalk program, not so much. Then we checked out the type of vehicles that the downtown uses, the light-duty utility vehicles. Very maneuverable, and they're relatively inexpensive, but they're too fragile to go through the heavy windrows, and the mower is too small to be used in the parks for a production mower. And the heavy-duty articulating vehicle, that's the kind we have now, and we demoed 2 of those, and they are a fantastic machine. They're heavy-duty, a lot of different attachments we can get on it, and really handles everything that we want to do in the future. So that's the kind of the vehicle that we decided on. The disadvantages are they're one of the most expensive types of vehicle that we demoed. So after that, with all their goals in mind and looking at our reviewing our demo notes, we added some line items. Ribbon blower, which is an advancement in snow blowers. It's really an upgrade over the standard snow blower that goes through heavy ice and hard packed snow and can dig down and chew that kind of stuff up, where we don't shear pins as much as the other type. We wanted a boom mounted mower for doing the right-of-ways and trimming back the brush. And I'll just go to that next slide. You can see equipment with some of these types of attachments on it. We wanted a finishing mower. That's for the Parks Department. We spec'd them. We requested bids in 10-foot and 14-foot widths. And so we're really focusing on the 14-foot width. It's 40% more cutting availability for our department. And it's nice about that is when you get in those tight spots, it's got a 6-foot center section and 4-foot wings. So you can just like fold them up. So you can have a 10-footer, a 6-footer, or a 14-footer. And extremely efficient. And we also spec'd as a line item, a salt sand spreader try to lessen some of those trip hazards, those slipping hazards that we have on some of our sidewalks, just so we can apply sand or salt after we clean things up. Anyway, on August 8th, we opened 5 bids. 3 are from a single bidder, and after a lot of review, we recommended that we purchase bid number 2 from McQueen Equipment. That's a 2018 trackless MT7 demo model for $103,990. It's not the low bid. They bid another machine that met specs that was slightly less expensive. I think it was $4,000 less, but it was an older style. It didn't have a lot of the technologies available now. It's kind of a step back to what the MT7 is. So we're recommending that we buy the 2018 trackless MT7. That's the high-end model of it. Also, it's a demo model. The first bid was a brand new unit. This is the unit that we actually demoed last winter, and it's got less than 50 hours on it. It comes with a new warranty on the entire machine and the engine for $10,000 less. And it's only got 50 hours. It's like a week of work on a piece of equipment. It's for 10 grand. It's a great deal. So I also recommend that we purchase all line items for a total of $56,350. That'll give us all the capabilities that we're looking for in the goals that we set forth. And hopefully this piece of equipment will meet all of our goals, and we can return $33,600 to stock and equipment because we're doing 2 jobs with 1 piece of equipment. So that's what we got.
City Manager, you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor. Certainly, at the outset of this project, was very impressed with the work that Director Morrow and DPW has achieved, and continuing to work toward the fulfillment of the goal, the prioritization of resources to continue to support services and enhance community services and support. So there are 3 motions included in the agenda. The first would be to approve the purchase as outlined by Director Morrow for $103,990, and the salt spreader and sand salt spreader for $54.50 from McQueen Equipment of St. Paul, Minnesota, at a total cost of $109,440. Secondarily, a motion to approve the use of budgeted production mower funds for the purchase of boom-mounted mower and 14 feet finisher mower from McQueen, $50,900. And finally, a motion to approve the trade-in of the 2007 Holder for $4,000. Thank you.
Okay, those are 3 separate motions. Commissioner Torn, do you have a comment, or you want to make a motion?
Comment.
Okay.
I can make motion too, but comment. First of all, I like that PowerPoint. You're getting really good at them. And second of all, I was just talking with Linda Hoth over the weekend, and this is a perfect example of what a valuable employee we have in Jim Morrow, and I don't think that we can say it enough. When you have a whole department like this who's saving the city lots and lots of money year after year after year, it's so much appreciated, and I just want to constantly highlight that. So congratulations, thank you very much.
Okay.
Do you want somebody else to make the motion?
If you want to do it, that's fine.
Sure.
If Commissioner Collins could do it?
Sure. I'm good.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a demo trackless model MT7 multi-purpose tractor with ribbon blower for $103,990, and a salt spreader and sand salt spreader for $5,450 from McQueen Equipment of St. Paul, Minnesota, at a total cost of $109,440.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Twardy?
Yes.
Mayor Bosbus?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Motion carried. Commissioner Torty?
Thank you. Make a motion to approve the use of budgeted production mower funds for the purpose of the boom-mounted mower and 14-foot finishing mower from McQueen Equipment of St. Paul, Minnesota for $50,900.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosbus?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. And finally,
Make a motion to approve the trade-in of 2007 Holder multi-purpose tractor to McQueen Equipment of St. Paul, Minnesota for $4,000.
Support.
it's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Torty?
Yes.
Mayor Vasquez?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. And at this time, before we go to item number 2, I'd like to take a 5-minute recess for the commission. Anybody like to continue to stay, fine. If you'd like to leave, fine too, but some of us have to do duty. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Those last two, we didn't have to deal with that.
They're hiding on the front lines, cute little thing.
Right.
Oh, like, no, you're not.
Right, I know.
You're not. I remember when you worked for the city.
I had a really hard time looking at her because she was like yelling at us.
I know.
Look at the TV. Right.
I remember when she worked for the city, she wasn't a cute little thing, she was all like that.
All we had to do was 2 separate.
We follow the way it's on the assumption that the 3 will start for you guys. We assume that
Actually, you know what, that was a fun one to be honest.
yeah, well, we didn't get a lot of stuff. You didn't know that. When the mayor asked me what to do, I said, looks like it says we don't have to. But you can say, if you want, say, I'm set up for that with one motion, and then we can do it that way. Okay, so tell us what your computer is gonna be, what's gonna fit with your.
What? Oh, the door's locked.
Next time I get locked out, I'm going home.
Exactly. You figure you're done, right?
Randy took a
Randy.
quickly. He left. He walked out. Yeah. Please keep him. Please. Unless you have a, it's already been asked. No. Sour. Whiskey sour. The other one's a good flat. Are you already doing that? Yeah, the other one's a good flat, being 10. What? Kit Kat. Oh, Kit Kat? You found a Kit Kat? Years ago. I only got to you anyway, so sit with my headphones. Little sucker, Jolly Rancher. I gave Tony most of my stuff. You guys happen to read this report? The health? Yeah, I was shocked. You know what I was shocked at? The cancer rate in UP is lower than state average. The incidence? Well, I was looking at other things. I didn't see that yet. Yeah. Yeah, I read through that. Huh? Yeah, it must be. Cirrhosis is bad, but. You wonder about heavy drinking? Yeah, yeah. Because they die of cirrhosis. Huh? I wasn't saying, I wasn't sure. No, I thought, no, it was an interesting report. And also the health department, the consolidated health department report on UP. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and. But also the.
Okay, we are, Mr. Twardy joining us here? Yeah. Okay, we are back in session. Thank you very much for the understanding. Item number 2.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 2, under the city manager's report, would provide for the award of a bid for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation Certified Grant Administrator for the rental rehabilitation project at 221 West Portage Avenue. In accordance with prior City Commission direction, the City of Sault Ste. Marie solicited proposals from certified grant administrators for management and administrative services required for the administration and implementation of a proposed community development block grant funded through the state of Michigan. The project for which funds will be obtained consists of constructing 6 apartment units in the second floor of the historic building at 221 West Portage Avenue, currently home to Second Childhood and Adults 2 and Sioux Brewing Company. As noted previously, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation has provided a letter of interest committing at least $329,532 or 50% of the project cost to convert 12 motel-type units into 6 quality apartments. On Friday, July 27th, one bid was opened in the city clerk's office from Northern Consultants of Hancock in the amount of $28,480 for these services. This proposed rate falls within the state of Michigan standards for payment of consultant services. Upon review, an internal panel was assembled to conduct an interview including Angie Patterson of the engineering department, who's also a certified grant administrator, Misty Kalia, property owner, and Deputy City Manager Troyer. At the conclusion of the interview, it was unanimously recommended the City Commission award the certified grant administrator bid to Northern Consultants of Hancock based on their extensive experience and knowledge with rental rehabilitation projects and the specific grant program. The CDBG-funded rental rehabilitation program requires that 4 of the 6 units be rent restricted and offered to low to moderate income tenants for just 1 year, and then all 6 units will become market rate. The project will have the long-term positive impact of placing 6 market rate apartment units into the local economy and represent a significant investment by an invested property owner. Accordingly, it is my recommendation that the City Commission award the bid for certified grant administrator services to Northern Consultants as presented and to designate the city manager as the certifying grant official and authorized to execute grant-related documents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Commissioner Talentino.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to award the bid for certified grant administrator services to Northern Consultants Incorporated and to designate the city manager as the certifying grant official and to authorize the city manager to execute grant-related documentation.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy?
Yes.
Mayor Bosbus?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 3, under the city manager's report, would provide for the award of a contract for tree planting. On this matter, City Engineer Basista will present to the City Commission.
Okay. Evening, Linda.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission. For the past 3 years, we've been working on our Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grant that we received as part of the Emerald Ash Borer Reforestation. And so this contract before you to award is the final amount that we have left on the grant is $15,945. And we have planted close to 100 trees already, and with this contract, we're going to be planting another, if I can read, looks like we're going to be planting another 86 trees, so, you know, just shy of 200 trees would have been planted with this grant. So we put out advertisement for bids. Our spec was we listed a number of locations that we plan to plant the trees, mostly in parks, and to get to our total dollar amount that we had remaining, we asked for a number of Out of the locations where we could put a certain number of trees, we asked the bidders to actually say how many trees they would put in that location with the guidelines of 10 in this location, 20 in this location, and so forth. And the spec was for 10-gallon trees. We received bids from G&J Site Solutions out of Calumet and KWAS Landscaping of Sault Ste. Marie. Both of the bids had irregularities in their bid forms. KWAS Landscaping put well over the 15,945, just filled in every blank, and so their bid added up to more than the 15,945. G&J Site Solutions actually put the specified number of trees, and the total added up to 15,945, but they clearly indicated that their trees would be the 7-gallon size trees as opposed to the 10-gallon that we had spec'd. So because there were irregularities in both bids, we did a thorough review on both to determine which one would be in the best interest of the city and who would be trying to compare apples to apples, who truly was the low bidder. So as a result, since 7-gallon is 30% smaller than a 10-gallon tree, we adjusted G&J's prices up by 30%, and by doing that, we, and compared to KWAS, G&J prices overall were still lower. We then asked the tree commission, some members of the tree commission were asked about the various species that were presented on the bid forms and whether or not the 7-gallon, whether there was a substantial difference between the 7-gallon trees and the 10-gallon trees, with the idea that we would receive 110 trees from G&J versus 76 from KWAS. And the response from the commissioners were more trees are better. And there's not as appreciable difference between the 7-gallon and 10-gallon, and they'd be easier to replace if they died after the 1-year warranty, and so on and so forth. And then just as another final check on making a recommendation for the bid, we checked the local bid section of the purchases ordinance. Now, that section of the ordinance only applies to purchases, and the tree is this contract is for supplying the trees and planting the trees and providing that 1-year warranty on the trees and the planting. So that part of the purchasing ordinance does not technically apply, but when we applied that to this, it still did not meet the 3% bid adjustment. G&J Site Solutions was still lower than that, what would create the, provide for the local bid adjustment. So upon all of the review of the bid documentation submitted, and just to let you know, on our previous contract, our only 2 bidders last time were KWAS and G&J Site Solutions, and KWAS was by far the low bidder on the previous contract, but G&J came in again with another bid, and so we are recommending G&J, the contract to G&J Site Solutions for as bid on their bid form in the amount of $15,945.
Okay, thank you. The city attorney has a question or comment.
Thank you. Linda, you indicated you applied a 30% factor because 10 gallons is 30% bigger than 7 gallons, but it's actually 43% bigger.
Okay, well, okay. we still, they still were clearly the lower than KWAS. The difference between the 7-gallon and the 10-gallon was not substantial enough to be a price difference. Recognizing the price difference in the number of trees that we were getting 30% or more trees, and
I guess I saw that, and I know the local bidder and the amount of work that they do in the community, and just going through the how we arbitrarily look at you know, the 10-gallon versus 7-gallon. And I don't know anything about trees other than, you know, have to water them and prune them once in a while. But it just seems that with both two irregularities, and one of the contractors wasn't able to provide a 7-gallon tree size and how many trees you might get. It just seemed. Is there a? Are we under the gun as far as the time frame on when the money has to be spent, or is it something that I know? And the numbers are out there now, so we know what the numbers are, I guess. So.
well, you have the option to award the bid to KWAS if that's what you choose. But we would have to go back into their bid and pick from the trees that they filled into the bid form, which trees that they're going to actually supply, because they listed more trees in their bid than they would provide at $15,945. So we'd be cutting down the number of trees that they actually provide and selecting from their bid form.
Cutting down trees?
I think Commissioner Torrey had her hand up first. Thanks.
So I know that Commissioner Talentino sits on that committee, and I know that KWAS is also on that committee. So do you recall the conversations? How did it?
No, I do not recall the conversations on that, on exactly how that one went.
Okay.
The bid, it did not go to, we just opened bids a couple of weeks ago. There has not been a tree commission meeting, and this would not have gone to the tree commission.
It would not have. Okay.
Because one, Kevin Wozniak is on the tree commission as well. So what we did was we contacted the tree commissioners that have been on the tree commission that were not Commissioner Talentino and not Kevin Wozniak.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Collins.
Yeah, can you explain that 30% again for me? And the reason I'm saying this is that you're getting 126 trees that are 7 gallons versus 70-something trees that are 10 gallons. So roughly it's the same volume. So there shouldn't be a discount applied either way. Same volume.
Well, if we just went by what was bid, the pure bid, and the bid tab is in your packet. So each tree and how in each area that the bidders bid is in the bid tab that's in your packet. And the KWAS's bid was for 76 trees for $23,385. This is just purely what their bid form said. G&J Site Solutions was the bid was $15,945, and they bid 110 trees. So the difference, it's just the difference between a 7-gallon size tree and a 10-gallon size tree. If we were putting these trees in the right-of-way or the various locations that we are putting them, that was another question to the tree commissioners, was based on the location of where we're putting these trees and the species that the that the bidders bid. The trees were different. We gave them a variety of species that we have on our approved tree list, and the response was that the diversity of trees and the species of trees that were on G&J's bid were preferable, with no appreciable difference between the 7-gallon and 10-gallon.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? I'm going to ask the city attorney. No, this is a, we asked for a variety of 10-gallon trees in the solicitation, right?
We said provide, for the most part,
1-year warranty on a variety of 10-gallon trees to be planted in various parks.
yes.
For a
So-
total of 50. So the amount we had to spend was $15,945?
Right, so we told the bidder, we have $15,945. Here is a list of trees, here are our locations, and here are some of the issues with the specific locations. For example, Rotary Park in that area that is now just Gooseville, or I don't, that's a very rough area, wet, so we described that area and said, pick the species that, would fit in that area. We had some at Malcolm Park or Project Playground, could go at Project Playground. We had some in the right-of-way that were in that area of the corner, that's Tree City USA area. We also had some 2-inch to 2.5-inch caliper trees in the West Portage right-of-way. And the difference in those prices, when you compared the straight up, was the low bidder, in that case, was G&J Site Solutions. So where we had apples to apples without making any adjustment, G&J was the low bidder. Then when we compared the size and the price and the number of trees, G&J was still the low bidder.
Okay. Anybody have any other comments or questions?
Can we make a motion to rebid?
Yeah, my question was, are we under a time frame where the money has to be spent this year, or is it something that?
Yes.
Yes, meaning?
December, we have to have the trees planted and money spent by December.
Okay, this is what, August? This is September almost. Commissioner Miller?
I have a question. So the $15,945, that's what you have left to spend?
Yes.
And they came in right at that amount? You told them that's how much money you have to spend?
Yep.
I thought when you did it, when you put bids out, you didn't tell people how much you had to spend.
You typically
Not for-
don't,
not
but
for
in this
grant.
case, we said how many trees and of what species will you give us for that amount?
For
And
this amount of
This is
money.
where they're going. Yep. Rather than go back, because if we just said exactly how many trees, we might have had money left over.
Right.
And we didn't want to go
I have
out
another
to
question,
bid.
Your Honor.
Sure.
When does this money have to be spent by?
December.
Okay. Commissioner Gary?
So we had 2 bidders with discrepancies,
Both discrepancies.
but you are recommending, based on your calculations and analysis, that we award the bid to G&J Site Solutions because they have the best price and they were a responsive bidder, as was KWAS. And as much as I like awarding bids to local bidders, and I think we should, and if we need to revisit the policy and sweeten our local preference, we need to quit screwing around and trying to design these things to fit. We need to protect the integrity of the process. If we don't like the process, let's change the process. And I'm all about that. So I think we need to go forward with the recommended bid. Otherwise, we're gonna get into a situation where we had with the airport bid, and then we're not gonna get anybody to bid on our jobs.
Make a motion.
I make a motion to accept the, to award the contract to G&J Site Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $15,945 for the planting of trees as presented.
Support.
Just a question. Both contractors knew the amount of money they had to deal with?
That was clearly stated
Okay.
in the bid.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty,
Yes.
Mayor Bosbus,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Gary.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item 4, under the city manager's report, would provide authorization to waive the sealed bid process for the purchase of police portable radios. On this matter, Police Chief Riley will address the city commission.
Okay. Evening, Chief.
None. I have a single vendor, so we're good.
Have you ever addressed us so late in the evening?
I am
That quarter to 10?
almost 2 hours past my bedtime. Good evening, Mayor. Almost good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. As you know, I presented to you last year that our current portable radios are going to be obsolete by the end of this year. You've agreed to provide a budget for us. We're dividing the purchase in half. 16 radios this fiscal year, 16 the next fiscal year. Luckily, Central Dispatch, the county through the Stone Garden grant, was able to buy 4 radios, and actually better radios than what I'm looking at purchasing for our department. They're going to be turned over to us for our use. We're looking at Motorola radios because that's the standard for the area. That's what everybody else in the area is going to be going to when they switch over. That's what we have now is Motorola. A key factor for that is if you want to talk portable to portable and you don't want scanners listening, you have to do it over the same brand. So if everybody else, Sheriff, MSP, everybody's going to have Motorola, we need Motorola. So that's a key factor for that. We picked a radio out with a charging system, microphone, antennas, all the goodies. The commission budgeted us for this fiscal year $14,000. Going with Motorola, we only have one vendor in the UP. That's Alcom Communications out of Marquette. That's who we use now. That's who we've been using for decades. It's a closed system. Motorola will not let us buy from anybody else. We have to buy from Alcom if we go with Motorola, which is good. 4 systems, because Central is getting us 4, but 4 systems that we would purchase would run $11,989.52. All the radios have to be programmed, and that's by the state of Michigan. They have a unit that does that. It's $250 per radio. It's not negotiable. You have to pay that to have our channels put into these radios. So that's $2,000. Total between the programming for the state of Michigan and the Alcom system is $13,989.52. Boy, is that cutting it close to the 14 grand, but still under budget. Being one vendor available to us, what I'm requesting is the commission approve the purchase policy exception for the one vendor reason, and approve the purchase of the 4 radio systems, Motorola APX 4000 from Alcom Systems out of Marquette.
Hey, City Manager, you have any additional comments?
Certainly appreciate the work that Chief Riley has put into this matter. While it may seem straightforward, it has been very complex, and appreciate his time and attention to this project.
Okay, thank you. And the 2 motions, one to waive the purchasing ordinance, we need as we understand it, we'll need, there's 6 of us here, that's a unanimous vote of the commission to waive the solicitation bid. Do we have a motion from Commissioner Tuorty?
First, I wanted to make a comment because I don't want to leave you out, and I gave Jim a really nice comment for saving the city and the taxpayers' money, but thank you to you also for saving the city and the taxpayers $14,000. So appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Central. I'd like to thank the county for that, for using Stone Garden
Absolutely.
funds, which saves us $14,000 on 4
Yeah,
radios.
absolutely. That being said, I'd like to make a motion to waive the public notice and sealed bid requirement of the purchasing ordinance for the solicitation of bids for the police portable radios and authorize the city manager to approve from Elcom in the amount of... It's two?
First
Okay.
motion is to just to waive the
Okay,
purchase
I'll make a motion
ordinance.
to waive that bid
Support.
process.
Okay, it's been moved, supported. Everybody understand the motion?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Roll call, please.
I didn't see two there.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Bosbus?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried. Commissioner Talentino. I'm sorry, Commissioner Tuorty.
That's fine. I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to approve the purchase of the equipment from Elcom in the amount of $13,989.52.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please. Thank you, Chief.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Bosbus?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 5 under the city manager's report would provide for the approval of a settlement for the Michigan Tax Tribunal case with Cascade Crossings. As city commissioners are aware, the city has been engaged in a significant case at the Michigan Tax Tribunal with Cascade X LLC, which owns the Cascade Crossings property. The case was specific to both the 2017 and 18 tax years. Recognizing that an issue with such major ramifications required a communal response, the city worked with Chippewa County and the Eastern Upper Peninsula Intermediate School District to enter into a tax tribunal and appeal joint defense agreement, through which local units of government could financially contribute to the defense the city mounted. This partnership was critical in supporting recent developments which supported a negotiated settlement on the tax appeal. City Attorney Canello will also present on this matter, and the associated stipulation has been included for consideration by the Commission. As noted within the stipulation, the negotiated true cash value for the 2017 tax year was $10.5 million, and the negotiated true cash value for the 2018 tax year was $8 million. City Attorney Canello will also provide an update regarding an adjustment in the true cash value for Buffalo Wild Wings that will result in an additional $2 million in true cash value being established in addition to the $8 million figure negotiated for the 18 tax year. Although the stipulation will result in a reduction in the true cash value of the property as previously established and generate refunds as detailed within the included materials, in light of all of the relevant information gathered during the appeals process and materials produced by the city's experts, it is city administration's position that the negotiated settlement is balanced and fair to involved parties. Again, the support from both Chippewa County and the EUP ISD is appreciated and was instrumental to reaching a negotiated conclusion on the matter.
Okay, is City Attorney going to speak?
If you'd like.
You bet.
Thank you. First, like to point out that Cascade Crossings was vastly overassessed by the city's prior assessor and had not yet been adjusted. It was assessed for almost $19 million by the city's prior assessor. And the city's fortunate to have collected all of those taxes for as many years as it did, because the owner at that time, Developers Diversified, never appealed the taxes. However, when the new owner purchased the property from Developers Diversified, they more or less promptly filed a tax appeal, so they must have anticipated at the time they purchased it that based on the fact they were only purchasing it for about $10 million, that it was overassessed. So it clearly was overassessed, which is against the law in the state of Michigan, and if a property is overassessed in the state of Michigan, the tax tribunal is allowed to determine, based on the evidence submitted by the parties, a number that the tax tribunal can come up with in its own judgment and wisdom. It doesn't accept either party's proposal in and of itself. It may go lower than the lowest, higher than the highest, or somewhere in between. So the tax tribunal is kind of a wild card when you get to the tax tribunal. Traditionally, I would say in the last 15 years, municipalities have done very poorly in front of the tax tribunal. Most of the tax tribunal contested cases have been decided at the petitioner's numbers, not the municipality's numbers. And the vast majority of cases get settled between the municipality and the appealing party, and therefore do not become tax tribunal decisions, and therefore we cannot assess cannot assess how the tax tribunal decided, because they didn't decide anything. They accepted a stipulation of the party. So in this particular case, Cascade, you know, they did their appraisals, had their numbers. They proposed $9,850,000 in true cash value for 17 tax year, and $5,890,000 in true cash value for 18. We were significantly higher than that, and in our final settlement, we have a proposal with them, should you determine to accept it, of as against their $9,850,000 for 17. The settlement offer is $10,500,000. As against their $5,890,000 number for 18, the settlement is $8 million. Now, I'd like to point out that we discovered an assessing error in this review process. And the assessing error was the prior assessor had assumed that the Buffalo Wild Wings land and building were owned by Cascade Crossings, and assessed it as such. However, during the review process, and again, Cascade Crossings, when owned by developer Diversified, never filed any appeals and never complained of it. They probably just passed on the taxation to Buffalo Wild Wings under some lease agreement they had. But anyway, it was never brought to the attention of the assessing office. During this process, it was brought to our attention that, in fact, Buffalo Wild Wings is a owned building by Buffalo Wild Wings on leased land. So as a result, the valuation of Cascade Crossings is significantly less because it does not include the Buffalo Wild Wings building. That's one reason for it being settling at a lower number than where it was at. The good news about that is that the assessor will correct that error, and going forward, that building will be individually assessed to Buffalo Wild Wings. So we'll be picking that back up, and that could be $1 to $2 million in additional assessment over and above the 10, 5, and 8 million proposed in this settlement. I should say over and above the 8 million proposed in this settlement, because that'll probably be for the 19 tax year that is created. Cascades will continue to be assessed on the valuation attributable to their leased land. Now, it's important to note that shopping plazas are bought and sold based on a valuation similar to a bond. In other words, how much interest do I earn if I buy that bond? And that dictates how much I'll pay for that bond. And in the case of shopping plazas, how much net rents will I receive for buying that shopping plaza? Unfortunately, as everyone should know by visiting Cascades Crossing, the property is in desperate straits. It's suffering from a lot of a lack of maintenance, necessary capital improvements, and it has significant vacancies. JCPenney's and Glenn's being two of them. As a result of losing JCPenney's and Glenn's, Cascade Crossings for the coming tax year is also hit with a clause in each of their leases where their tenants can reduce all of their rent for loss of anchor stores. And as a result, the rents become based on sales of the tenants, which will be significantly lower than their stipulated rents when the anchor stores existed. So Cascade Crossings is going only in one direction, and that's down. So moving Buffalo Wild Wings off the equation is good. Cascade Crossings indicated to us that they intend to sell the Glenn's building sever it from their parcel and sell it. That would then place that property in an uncapped status on the tax rolls with a new viable tenant. They had attempted to lease the property to Hobby Lobby. However, there was a provision in Joanne Fabric's lease that they could, that they had to approve a Hobby Lobby, and they declined to approve it. So Cascade Crossings lost the opportunity for Hobby Lobby because of that clause in the Joanne Fabric's lease. I believe that the settlement is in the best interest of the city. It doesn't mean Cascade won't appeal again if their fortunes continue to wane. Hopefully their fortunes will pick up. As our appraiser Mike Ellis indicated, he doesn't see much hope for retail moving forward due to the assault on brick and mortar retail that's occurring nationwide. And so you can expect you might see Cascade again someday. Also, as interest rates are increasing, that means that the amount someone will pay for that bond is less because they buy based on a current net rental income, and current net rental income will be reduced by increased interest rates going forward. So I recommend the approval of the settlement with Cascades Crossing at $10,500,000 true cash value for tax year 17 and $8 million true cash value for 2018.
Okay, let's go to Commissioner Collins.
Motion to approve stipulation for entry of consent and judgment on the Michigan Tax Tribunal case with Cascade Crossing LLC as presented.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. City Manager has a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the Commission's awareness, the refunds associated with this stipulation would be a drawdown on the general fund reserve balance. In the past years, of course, the minimum general fund balance has hovered around between 23 and 25%. However, that has always been qualified with the comment that it's anticipated that it may actually truly be around 20, and that is because of these types of situations. So just for the Commission's awareness, that would reflect for the audit completed as of June 30, 2019, something for future reference.
Okay. Certainly, on behalf of the Commission and the City of Sault Ste. Marie and the residents, thank the administration for their diligence in going forward with this and getting a tentative approval, I guess. Is it tentative or is it?
No, it's for your acceptance tonight.
The approval
it's fully authorized by the taxpayer.
Okay.
For you to accept.
Okay.
One other thing I'd point out is many municipalities do not challenge tax appeals. They don't challenge them.
Well,
They
so
just
far we're
let the taxpayer get what they want. So we are a unique community in that regard.
That's good information. Thank you for that. Again, thank you for your efforts. Those that have been involved, and certainly again thank those other parties that were involved in providing income to help to fight that battle. So we have a motion and support. Roll call, please.
Mayor Boswes?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Torty?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
That concludes the City Manager's report. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay, thank you. Item number H is the status report.
Thank
City-
you. My apologies.
No.
First item under status report is an update on the 2018 Garden of the Year request for nominations. A reminder that the City of Sault Ste. Marie is accepting nominations for the annual Garden of the Year program. Please kindly submit the name and address of your favorite garden by Friday, August 24th. Must be within city limits, and those that have received acknowledgement within the past 3 years would not be eligible. Award winners will be recognized at an upcoming City Commission meeting in September.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Second item under status reports is an update regarding a vacancy, or 2 vacancies rather, on the Ethics and Conduct Board. A reminder that interested citizens in the Ethics and Conduct Board are encouraged to file applications with the City Clerk's office. There is an application deadline established of Monday, August 27th, 2018 for these vacancies.
Are we putting it on the website too?
Yes, Mayor, we will.
Okay.
And the third item under status reports is pertaining to a survey released by the League of American Bicyclists. This is associated with the city's bicycle-friendly community application process, which is officially underway. And the League of American Bicyclists have worked to release a survey. It's been circulating through social media and is available on the city website. It will remain open through Sunday, September 23rd, and anybody with an interest in bicycling certainly encouraged to fill out and provide feedback, which will be used in both the process as well as by city administration in planning future bicycle-friendly improvements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the city manager? Okay. Item number I, matters presented by the public. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to make a comment at this time? Okay, you have, what, 3 minutes?
5.
Stephanie Sabatine.
Thank you.
I think that it's important to note that there's a $120 fee for that appeal of structures board just to go and be heard. You could be denied, you could lose $120. I need to put money in my building. I don't want to give money away and spend it unnecessarily. That I could be denied. And they also, I spoke to one of the members of the existing structures board of appeals, and they told me that they have no power to get rid of these fines. So it would just be an extension of deadlines. And I'm not going to put myself out there and say, okay, this will be done by October 30th. You don't know when you can get on a contractor's list. I mean, we've already talked about this tonight. It's very difficult. And right now, contractors are busy. They're super busy. They're scrambling, trying to get stuff before the weather gets here. So I think that's crazy to hold that. You guys really need to think about getting rid of that fee. If you want people to appeal, you're going to fine people, then you're going to charge them to appeal. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Thank you.
Glenda King. I just want to say, I commend all of you for serving the city of Sault Ste. Marie. And I've had an agenda item, May 21st agenda. I had many questions. I didn't get any answers. It's very difficult. The forum for this meeting is difficult because you squeeze us into 10 minutes, and I mean, the first one took me all day to get what I wanted to say down to 10 minutes. And then you put your defense up, and then that's it. And so I came here tonight, and I had more questions. My question really was policy and procedure. What is the policy and procedure? I don't have the answer tonight. So I've come here twice in the forum, and I walk away with no question, or no answers to my questions. With my agenda item, there was a 10-page memorandum attached to it, and I didn't have time to cover this tonight. There's a lot of talk in here about inspections, licensing, and you know, there's hundreds of landlords you have registered. I bet you 80% of them are natives of your city. And we don't know what's going on. And you're talking about your meetings, and on May 18th I asked that you meet with me and landlords, any concerned landlords, so that we could speak to you, because it's almost impossible in this forum to really discuss things. This affects us. This affects our business. This affects our investments that we planned on for retirement. We need to be included in the process, and I really would appreciate if you would set a time to speak with us, to sit down and let's talk. We're good people. We're not bad people. 95%, I mean, you might have 95% are good landlords, I would say. You might have 5% that are slumlords. You can call them slumlords if you want. 95% of us are good people. You're not talking to us. You're making decisions without any input from us, and that's what it's about, is us. I'm asking you again, would you please set a time where you can all attend a meeting with landlords who are interested. We'll be polite. You don't have to laugh.
I'm not laughing.
You know, I mean, we're good people. We're not going to go there and act like animals. We just want to talk. You know, we run businesses. We're in the rental business. We have a lot of information. We have a lot of situations that you probably don't even consider. You know, and again, I know you're all here to do good. But I'm just requesting, please, would you please set a time with the landlords, with the registered landlords. There won't be 750, but I mean, I started with one, and then there was two, and now there's, how many are here now tonight? Do we have to keep coming back here and squeezing sound bites into 10 minutes and 3 minutes, and next time you may have 20? And we're all here, and it's late at night. Would you please consider meeting with the landlords? I'd appreciate it. Thank you. And you got a couple of weeks and to think about it and set something up. Or we can just keep coming back and trying to talk to you.
That meeting will be set up, but the community improvement committee meeting will meet, and then they'll meet with, we can meet, set up a special meeting where we can have the landlords, if they want to show up. The invite will go out, you know, I'm sure you'll be here, and I think Stephanie and Francine will be here, and it's just talk about what they have come up with, because we wanted landlord input on the stuff going forward, because of that's the way it works. I mean, the transparency is important.
You said that, I mean,
So
2012 certification, I had no clue of anything until I got that $10 fee. I was a city employee at the time. I didn't know about that.
See, that's,
Why?
I know there was a lot of discussion, and there were public hearings,
Was it on
and
the agenda?
yeah,
Were
oh
there
sure,
agenda meetings?
sure, you can find it in them. I'm sure it was.
Because I know there was when it
yeah.
first was initiated, but
Yeah.
I was
No, wait,
unaware
I
of
remember
any of that.
we had several meetings of the commission talking about
And I know now
that.
I'm looking, and there's
Yeah.
so much talk in this
Yeah.
document about
No.
licensing and inspections.
Yeah.
And we have a right to be
Yeah.
heard.
Oh, no question. No, that will happen.
So please notify us.
Do you have her number? Does he have your number?
Yes, you have my number. You had my number from the first day I came here, and you all said, well, would you like to talk to me? And then it turned into, oh, email me, please. And it was email you, and then I got switched to Ms. Troyer, and I emailed her, and then I got emailed.
Okay.
I mean, I was emailing the
Understand.
city. I don't
Yeah.
get anything accomplished other than bringing attention to you. But what are we
Okay.
getting accomplished in this? We need to talk.
Yeah. We'll have a meeting, and we'll discuss the different situations, and
I'm here, I'm not
Okay,
here to
understand.
hurt you, I'm
No.
not here to hurt the city. I just want good discussion.
improving the housing stock in Sault Ste. Marie is important for everybody, and important for your livelihood, and certainly for citizens using the facility, so
Right.
it will happen.
Okay.
Commissioner Collins?
Commissioner
Well,
Torres first.
we'll get to the commission in time, okay? Is this,
I just want
okay?
to make a comment on some of the things.
Well, you can do it during your commissioner time if you want, because we're gonna move on, okay? There's gonna be a discussion work, okay? Any other public comment time?
Francine, Barbara Miners. I don't want to beat this horse to death because it kind of feels like it has been tonight,
Yeah.
but I do commend two commissioners who have asked questions that are relevant to our concerns. And, you know, something that, Bob Brown had indicated was that at one point he did contact a landlord directly to advise of certain circumstances. And I feel rather insulted and a little discriminated against that there was no reason why I couldn't have been contacted ahead of time. Instead, I received such an abrasive and insulting letter, and I commend you, Commissioner Collins, for making a suggestion of letters that are a little more friendly and, to work with us. As Glenda indicated, we're not horrible people. We've invested in this community. For most of us, this is part of our retirement portfolio. We want to work with you as much as you want to work with us, but you can't be sending me a letter telling me you're going to throw me in jail if I don't pay a fine. Seriously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Item number, item J, matters presented by the City Commission. Commissioner Tuarte.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't snickering at you, Glenda. Sometimes people don't really realize that in order for the city commission to get together, it has to be a public meeting. And so we can't get together and talk to you unless it's a public meeting and it's televised. And we put a notice in the newspaper. So that's one of the reasons that we're not just meeting with you. And then also, as far as Stephanie, you invited us to come and look at your rental property. That was advised that I don't go unless I went with a city official. And so I mean, if I want to invite a city official to come with me and then go look at your property, but it's not, you know, so that was the only reason that I didn't respond to that, and I responded to go have coffee with you instead with Commissioner Talentino. So that was the only thing that I was going to say. I was just going to say that Sioux Ultimate Paddle Day on Saturday was a great day.
Yep, it sure was. And a lot of volunteers, made that happen. And again, we'll talk about that, but Commissioner Collins, you have something?
Yeah, so just for clarification for my own sake, so after the Community Services Board meets, is that the name of it? What is it?
Improvement Committee.
Community
Improvement Committee.
Okay, that one. So when the Improvement Committee, after they meet, then we're gonna actually set up a special meeting with the commissioners to meet with property owners, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, on some of the discussion that happened at that particular meeting, then what their concerns are, and go from there.
Okay. Just wanna make sure I was clear on that, so.
Okay. Okay, and certainly the Ultimate Paddle Day, some of us were able to take that in and went there, and great weather. They had a sanctioned Michigan canoe race that was 13 miles, a paddle race. I know Linda Basista and her husband Jeff and Kelly, and I see some faces out there. I'm sure the chief and the firemen were involved, to make all this go on. But we have a great waterway, and the more we use it, the better, and it's being used more and more going forward, and a lot of athletic activities that people are doing on the water, and it's certainly the kayaks and the paddle boards and the Ultimate Paddle Day. We certainly thank the Chippewa County Foundation, and those, I believe they were the sponsor on that day, and it just was a really nice day and great weather and good success. Anyone else? Commissioner Gary.
Make a motion, we adjourn this meeting.
Support.
Been moved, support. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Yeah, you jinxed it.